2011, the Atlantis came to a wheel stop. Yeah, I grew up here. My dad worked for NASA. My uncle was a contractor. When that wheel stop happened, the next day, my uncle got the layoff notice, right? And it 30, 60 days. It was depressing. We're talking about thousands of people laid off.
Super depressing. Atlantis landed on a Thursday. On Friday, 2,000 contractors got pink slips and walked out the door. Yet they worked on that vehicle. That was the best vehicle we ever flew, the cleanest. That's the dedication of the workforce here.
Right. So, and take me back to that time. You called it a depressing time. You know, the fact that the shuttle program was something that the government completely had ownership of and paid for. Now we're moving into this commercial crew, which you've overseen making that transition. And tell me about that 9 years in which we made that move.
Well, obviously, everybody was really attached to the shuttle. I mean, it was our history for 30 years and did an awesome job. The Hubble Space Telescope, all the satellites it deployed, building the International Space Station. But when I first got here, I told everybody the shuttle program's going to end. We have to start preparing for our future. And nobody wanted that, to hear that. But how many times in your life do you get to define what you want your future to be? And we set out on this bold goal of trying to turn KSC into a multi-user spaceport, supporting both government and commercial operations. And I've got a very persistent team. They worked extremely hard, and through a number of agreements, you know, we were able to make it happen. And this is the future. Commercial spaceflight, you know, the administrator says it all the time. We want to establish a commercial environment in low Earth orbit so that we can focus on the hard job of exploring beyond our home planet, to establish that presence in our solar system beyond planet Earth, establish a sustained presence on the moon, get to Mars, establish a presence there. We can't do that if we're locked here in low Earth orbit. And commercial crew with both SpaceX and Boeing, that's the beginning of a whole new era of spaceflight.
All right, very good. Quick question. We've got, of course, a special guest coming back today. The President of the United States plans on being here. Jim, you took him around the first time around. How did that go? I think I saw a picture on Twitter. He signed some space hardware.
That's right. So he took a look at the Orion crew capsule. Of course, the Orion for Artemis 1 is ready to go. And he signed, you know, a piece of hardware that will fly on the crew capsule for Artemis 2. So that's kind of, and not just him, but the First Lady and the Vice President and the Second Lady, they all signed it. So, so their names are going to fly around the moon on Artemis 2, which is exciting. But I just want to give Colonel Cabana a compliment here, because he did bring this spaceport through a very difficult time. And now it is a multi-use spaceport, and we do have commercial, and we have, in fact, even international launches here, and now we're going to have commercial crew launches. Bob has done a wonderful job transforming this spaceport. That's why we're doing commercial crew. NASA wants to be one customer of many customers. We want to have numerous providers that are competing on cost, innovation, safety, driving down costs, increasing access. But even better today, when I took this job just a few short years ago, you know, our budget at NASA was around $19 billion. The budget request that President Trump gave us for next year is $25 billion. We are in a great position because the President is committed to space exploration. Of course, he's committed to the Space Force. We haven't had this much support for space since John F. Kennedy, and we've got bipartisan support. Everybody wants to see the Artemis program be successful. Everybody wants to see not just the next man, but the first woman on the moon, and that's what we're building here.
Yeah, it's key to it all is that bipartisan support, and of course, what the work that Bob's been doing here. You can see the commercial activity all around this place. We're going to get to some questions on social media real quick that our audience wants to find out. So the first question is from James on Twitter, and he asks, what is the hardest part of going to space? And we're going to have to give that question to Bob.
Well, Daryl, you know, nothing's hard if you prepare for it. And what we are afraid of is stuff we don't have knowledge about. And that's what we do when we learn how to be astronauts. We train, okay? You spend a long time as an astronaut candidate learning. You spend a long time preparing for a mission. For an International Space Station mission, training around the world on all the different modules and everything, you know, it's like 2.5 years of training before you get on orbit for that time to actually do your work. So I'd have to say the hardest part is the preparation for it. But you are so prepared when you go. You just have total confidence. You know that you are very well trained for what you're going to do. You have an outstanding team on the ground supporting you. And that is so important, to have that ground support as you climb into that vehicle. You know that they've done their very best to ensure your safety and a successful mission. But after that, it's a piece of cake, except no simulator on Earth can prepare you for what those guys are going to feel. It's better than a cat shot off an aircraft carrier.
I believe it. Maybe one day I'll get to try. The commercialization effort means we want everybody to be able to fly into space. That's the goal.
Absolutely.
It's a great point about preparation, because that's not the highly visible part. The launch is, and so it's good to know that all that preparation leads to that confidence. By the way, just an update operationally, they're getting ready to close the hatch door. You can see on your screen there, the workers there are getting ready to get that closed, and working on that right there with Doug Hurley and Bob Binken on the inside of Crew Dragon. Our next question is from Mathis on Twitter, and he asks, what kind of operations will the astronauts do between the liftoff and docking with the International Space Station? I know you pay a lot of attention, Jim, to the operations, especially of this mission.
You bet.
What do you know about that?
So there's a number of things. The first thing that they have to do is, of course, we've got a number of burns to get in phase with the International Space Station. We've got some boost burns as well. We're talking about, operating the rocket engine to get in alignment with the space station. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing that we need the astronauts to do once they get on orbit and before they dock is rest. We need them to eat, we need them to rest, we need them to be prepared for that docking. Once they are in the range of the International Space Station, they're going to start maneuvering the spacecraft themselves. Not automatic, but they're going to do it themselves. They are in fact test pilots, and as test pilots they will test fly this vehicle to make sure that it operates as advertised. And of course then they will dock with the International Space Station. And a unique capability here is it's automatic rendezvous and automatic docking. And so we're going to be able to see that for the first time as well.
That's going to be exciting to see. Thank you for sharing that with us. Jim Bridenstine, Administrator of NASA, Bob Cabana, Director of the Kennedy Space Center, thank you both for joining us. And we're going to send it back to Marie in the studio.
All right, thanks a lot, Daryl and Mr. Bridenstine and Mr. Cabana for joining us. You can see some clouds starting to gather over Launch Complex 39A. We're keeping a close eye on weather. Again, 50% chance of launching today. We just got to see what the weather's going to do. A little bit ago, we heard the crew complete their comm checks live on the air. We saw their seats rotate. That helps get them into a little bit more comfortable position for the G-forces during launch. And more importantly, it helps them be in a better position to interact with the screens in front of them. They completed their suit leak checks. We saw during the interview just a few minutes ago the hatch begin to close, and so inside the white room there, the pad closeout team is in there still doing some work. That hatch close is, it's not as simple as just closing a car door. There's a process to seal it and check it and make sure that everything is sealed properly, right, Lauren?
Yeah, that's correct. If they haven't already started, one thing that will be coming up next is the leak check. What they'll do is they'll attach a piece of ground support equipment. They don't have it in their hands right now, so it looks like it hasn't started yet. There it is. You can see it there. The closeout member number 5, it's already attached to the side hatch mechanism. And what they'll do is they're essentially checking for the leak rate. And they'll hold pressure there for a few minutes and then track that change in pressure over time to make sure that it's within bounds, making sure that you don't have any issues with those O-rings there that are holding that pressure. And so once they complete that leak check, they will then do what is the called the installation of, or the final installation of the SPEP, or side pressure equalization plug. That's basically a plug that once the capsule splashes down, what you'll do is actually remove that, and what it does is equalizes pressure across the hatch. So once that thing is plugged in, you know that everything is super tight and that you shouldn't have any leaks on orbit.
One of the other things that I think is pretty cool about Dragon, you can kind of see them on the edges there are some of the windows. And I know that Dragon started out as cargo. It was Cargo Dragon. You have your cargo version, and before you moved on to the Crew Dragon version, but you even had windows on the cargo version. Can you explain kind of why that was?
Yeah, the very first Cargo Dragon that we ever launched had a window over the hatch, over the side hatch, and the reason we did that is we've always envisioned Dragon to ultimately be a crewed vehicle. So even in the beginning, for the very first vehicle we ever made, which didn't even really carry much cargo, we put that window there, and it to us symbolizes what Dragon's purpose has been all along. You know, taking those steps, starting off with the CRS program and resupplying the space station with experiments and food and crew provisions for the astronauts on board, to now putting our own putting NASA's astronauts in our own vehicle. It's that natural progression to what we were aiming for the whole time.
Mm-hmm. And Leland, what's your take on the touchscreen technology? We saw a little bit about that. Obviously, this is a very different kind of look than what we saw during the space shuttle.
You know, it's the future. I mean, we had our LCD displays, and we had lots of buttons to press, and valves and switches. And I think this new technology will allow us to get through procedures much more much faster, because we had paper flight data file that we're having to turn to different pages and get to things. And I think this will make it much more efficient to go through your malfunctions and your procedures with the touch screens. And I think having the gloves, being able to touch the screens and work within the gloves, everything's kind of sleek and efficient. There's not a lot of wires and things hanging off, and their knee boards, you can see their knee boards on their left knees, and so that's for some extra little notes and things.
The hatch is closed now.
There's some commentary.
We are ready for the post-ingress briefing when you are ready to copy.
And we just heard confirmation on the loops that the hatch is closed, so that is a little bit ahead of schedule.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. En este preciso momento estamos viendo que la cápsula ha sido cerrada. Ya han testeado todos los datos correspondientes a la presión que se requiere para que los astronautas se mantengan dentro de la cápsula Dragón. Entonces estamos preparando ahorita lo que son los sistemas de control para poder empezar con el lanzamiento.
Okay, we copy.
And on the vehicle health front, both F9 and Dragon health remains nominal with no items of note.
So we just heard the weather is still iffy.
Good news, thank you.
The weather is still iffy.
This concludes the post-ingress brief. Report when ready for comm checks with Falcon 9 operators.
We are ready for the F9 operators.
Copy. Expect that shortly.
So when we hear that chatter pick back up, we're going to quiet right down so that you can listen into that along with us. But we just heard them discussing the weather briefly, still keeping an eye on that, but the next decision point is going to be before prop load. So we're going to press forward for now and then reevaluate before they start fueling the rocket. But in the meantime, it sounds like Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon are healthy, so the vehicle's in good shape, right? It sounds like kind of a little bit of a repeat from Wednesday, that we're just keeping an eye on the weather at this point.
You can see on their left legs, well, in that previous
And
image.
Dragon SpaceX comm checks with F9, you can expect it in about 1 to 2 minutes.
Claro que sí, todos los sistemas se encuentran listos. Ahora estamos esperando únicamente la situación del clima para poder ver si se puede hacer este lanzamiento hacia la estación internacional.
You say, Lauren, those are tablets versus just knee boards that you can write on?
Or the tablets are inside.
Oh, they're inside.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And so when would they pull those tablets out to use them?
During the mission,
Okay.
while on orbit.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's coming, if the background noise is coming through over the air, but we hear the rain really picking up outside the studio here. So I'm kind of wondering if Bob and Doug are hearing the sounds of the rain clouds opening up over the pad. It looks like it's still kind of patchy out there, but again, we were following some thunderstorms that look like they may be making their way over here. It kind of looks like it's raining from that view. It's a little bit hard to tell through the haze.
All right, launch is now just over 2 hours away. Tahira, you are there with the social teams. Now that the hatch is closed and the rain's picking up and all kinds of exciting things are going on right now as we count down and get into the last 2 hours of the count, I bet things are getting pretty interesting on social media.
Hey, Lauren. I mean, yes, they are. So many different things are going on right now, and I think people online are just wondering what's going to happen with today's mission. I have TweetDeck open right now, and it is just scrolling with the conversation of people around the nation talking about today's launch attempt. We also just checked viewership, and we are now up to 1.4 million people watching this live broadcast, so really hope things look good with weather. And on that note, let's take a look at some of the things being said on Twitter right now. So it looks like, we just have some more future astronauts. I really love seeing the young generation just getting mobilized, getting excited about today's mission. Looks like we've also got some Godspeed and safe travels for both astronauts today. Really do wish them the best of luck on the second attempt. Hope it happens. Some throwback photos, all from people visiting NASA's centers, and also just let's do this. I love this can-do attitude, and I just love seeing that people are still keeping the energy alive for today's launch. So there were obviously some disappointing reactions to Wednesday's scrub, but let's take a look at how people are getting excited for today's attempt. Let's roll.
Claro que sí. Aquí estamos transmitiendo por cortesía de NASA el lanzamiento de estos dos astronautas que van a salir el día de hoy a las 3:22 hora del este desde el lanzamiento de Caño Canaveral en Florida. Y bueno, aquí tenemos a los dos astronautas que son Robert Behnken y Douglas Hurley. Son dos grandes astronautas que son realmente, ellos están experimentados en ese tipo de vuelo, ya han hecho misiones anteriores y esta misión es para testear, para evaluar las condiciones de la cápsula Dragón de SpaceX. El lanzamiento se efectuará en 2 horas, más o menos.
Everybody will have something to smile about. And with that, let's head back to Lauren. Lauren.
Thanks, Tahira. So it looks like people are pretty stoked about today's attempt. Please continue to join the conversation by using the hashtag #LaunchAmerica across all the social media channels.
Yeah, I really love seeing the little kids get excited. I know my 3-year-old is super excited. She's got an astronaut sleeping bag and
Really?
she loves to climb in it. Yeah, it's the body of the bag is a spacesuit, and then the head is empty where the pillow is. So when she gets inside, it looks like she's got a spacesuit on. So she loves it.
That's the inspiration for that next generation of explorers that are going to take Doug and Bob's place one day. And I think we have some people out there that are so interested in our conversation about the worm and the meatball that they've created something called the worm ball.
What?
Yeah, I was checking my email during that because I emailed you guys the worm ball, and I was like, what is this? I'm having a hard time seeing it, but what is the worm ball?
So it's a NASA meatball, which is, what it should be.
Yes.
Okay, look at it. There it is.
All right, thank you. I need a visual.
So they took the angular NASA logo and put in the worm inside of the meatball. Can you live with that, Lauren?
You know what? That's a beautiful compromise. I'll take it. I'll take it.
It's a nice marriage of the two.
Oh, I love you, man.
Yeah, so, truth.
And There is another live look at Launch Complex 39A, and we have had the opportunity to share with you a lot about the SpaceX Crew Dragon sitting on top of Falcon 9, a lot about the crew themselves, and the significance of today as the official return, we hope, of human launch capability to American shores. But we would be remiss if we did not explain why this pad 39A is hallowed ground.
We're go, same tide, we're go. Altitude, velocity, light.
Many of NASA's storied missions began their daring journey from the exact same spot on Earth. Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. This massive structure of steel and concrete has cradled rockets and guided each on their fiery ascent to space for over 50 years. There can be no launch without a launch pad, and this hallowed ground has a history greater than any other. Having evolved and been reshaped for each new era of space flight, it's alive with a heartbeat as strong as the first. Launchpad 39A came to life under the direction of project engineer Harry May as NASA ramped up its efforts to achieve an unprecedented calling.
Why, some say the moon. Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain?
In 1962, Earth-moving machines sculpted its massive pyramid base to a height of 40 feet. Then, concrete was poured to hold it in place. To launch the world's first moon rocket, engineers cut a flame trench nearly the length of 2 football fields down the middle of the mound. It was then lined with heat-resistant bricks to deflect 7.5 million pounds of earth-rattling thrust, first felt on Apollo 8. Less than a year later, Apollo 11 launched from Pad 39A. And hundreds of millions of people around the world watched as it landed on the moon 3 days later. Nearly a decade after this Apollo era, 39A again took center stage with a new, one-of-a-kind spacecraft, the Space Shuttle. Millions of pounds of additional steel for service structures.
Estamos viendo la historia del lanzamiento del Apolo 8 en estos momentos, mientras esperamos para el lanzamiento de estos dos astronautas por SpaceX y NASA.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All 3 engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff. The final liftoff of Atlantis on the shoulders of the space shuttle. America will continue the dream.
Roger, roll, Atlantis.
With the fleet retired, demolition crews removed the shuttle-era hardware to clear the way for NASA's monumental decision to lease this historic launch site to the private company SpaceX. Today, its sleek and modern design supports a family of rockets that has advanced the commercial age of American spaceflight. Now, 50 years after it first sent humans to the moon, this historic spaceport stands ready for the next wave of human exploration.
And we're looking live again at Pad 39A. We're looking at the pad closeout team. You can identify them by their numbers there. And we heard confirmation of the hatch being closed just a few minutes ago. So again, things a little bit ahead of schedule. And when I say ahead of schedule, I don't mean the launch time is changing. I just mean some of the specific milestones in the timeline. Those times are a little bit flexible, but that launch window remains instantaneous at 3:22 this afternoon. And Leland, you know, we just saw a piece about the history of Pad 39A.
All stations, Chief Engineer, and countdown 1 for comm check with the crew.
Ok, se encuentran checando la situación.
Guidance, navigation, and control.
Están
Dragon GNC on countdown
verificando
one,
que el
ComCheck.
control de navegación funcione correctamente.
GNC Dragon, we have you loud and clear.
GNC loud and clear. Stand by for ComCheck by the propulsion engineer.
Ok, escuchamos la confirmación
Dragon,
desde
prop
el
on
Chief
countdown one,
Engineer Elon Musk.
Prop Dragon, loud and clear.
Prop loud and clear. Stand by for ComCheck with the avionics engineer.
Contact.
Dragon, avionics on countdown one, ComCheck.
Ok, confirmación aprobada.
Avionics Dragon, loud and clear.
Avionics loud and clear, stand by for ComCheck by ground segment engineer.
Ok, contactando a
Dragon ground segment on
la estación
countdown one,
en
ComCheck.
tierra.
Ground segment Dragon, loud and clear.
Ground
Confirmación
segment loud and clear.
aceptada.
Stand by for ComCheck by launch control.
Dragon, launch control on countdown one. ComCheck.
Comprobando sistema para el centro de lanzamiento.
Dragon, loud and clear.
Confirmación
Launch control
aceptada.
loud and clear. Stand by for ComCheck by the chief engineer.
Confirmación aceptada por el Chief Engineer Elon Musk.
Dragon, chief engineer on countdown one, ComCheck. Chief engineer, Dragon, we got you loud and clear, Bala.
Ok, confirmación aceptada.
Chief
Una vez
engineer,
más.
loud and clear. This completes the Falcon 9 responsible engineer ComCheck.
Todos estos tests que están haciendo es para confirmar de que todos
And we
pueden
just saw
escuchar
thumbs up from Doug
claramente
Hurley. We
en
listened to a
tierra,
series of
ya que
comms
por
checks
si
there,
algún
and so
problema es
everything-
efectuado durante el vuelo, ellos pueden contactar a la estación terrestre y de esa forma saber qué es lo que ellos pueden hacer.
Loud and clear. Well, good luck, and let's see if the rain clears up.
Al parecer en Florida hay
sentiment is
una
shared
lluvia.
by all here.
Estamos esperando en que esta lluvia pare un momento,
Copy that.
ya que esto podría provocar una tormenta eléctrica y bueno, estando en el aire esto sería un poco peligroso.
So Bob and Doug, along with the launch teams and all of the rest of America, hoping the rain clears up here. But as far as comms checks go, everything sounded pretty normal, pretty nominal there. So we're just waiting on the weather to clear up. But again, there's a live look at Launch Complex 39A, the site of 82 space shuttle missions where they began, and of course Apollo, the first mission to the moon, Apollo 11 lifted off from 39A. And Leland, you were just 5 years old.
Seguimos esperando para ver qué es lo que está pasando con el clima. Al parecer se encuentra una lluvia en este lugar y bueno, se está esperando, se está checando muy de cerca el clima para ver que todo esto sea efectivo, y una vez que todo esto se ha dado como luz verde, bueno, podemos esperar el lanzamiento.
And the next day, all my friends in my community were like, "Yeah, you want to be an astronaut? We just had this momentous thing." And I said, "No." I didn't see it. I want to be Arthur Ashe, because Arthur Ashe trained 5 blocks down the street from where I grew up. And my dad talked
Bueno,
about
mientras
this
todo esto sucede, vamos a hablar un poco de los
And so
astronautas.
it wasn't until I got to know
Primero
some,
tenemos a Robert
who was an
Behnken.
engineer at NASA Langley that a friend of mine said, "You'd be a great astronaut." And I just laughed at him. And
Mejor conocido como Bob, él fue seleccionado por la NASA en el 2000. Es un veterano de 2 vuelos espaciales. Ha participado en el desarrollo de la aeronave en conjunto con SpaceX para hacer vuelos desde suelo americano, ya que los vuelos pasados a la estación internacional han sido desde Rusia. Él es nativo de Missouri. Él voló el STS-123 en marzo del 2008 y el STS-130 en febrero del 2010. Ha tenido más de 708 horas en el espacio y más de 37 horas durante las caminatas espaciales. Él es el comandante de operaciones del vuelo de SpaceX. Tiene 2 licenciaturas, una en física y una en ingeniería en mecánica. Fue graduado de la Washington University y también tiene una maestría y un doctorado en ingeniería mecánica del California Institute of Technology. Antes de unirse a la NASA, él ha trabajado como test engineer para las fuerzas de los Estados Unidos. Douglas Holley, él fue seleccionado astronauta en el 2000. Es igual un veterano, ha tenido 2 vuelos espaciales. Él ha piloteado el STS-127 y el STS-135. También tiene una licenciatura en ingeniería civil desde Tulane University. Él ha piloteado o ha sido test pilot de lo que son la Marina de los Estados Unidos. Y él es el comandante de este vuelo. Él es el que va a dirigir la misión.
And a recent resident aboard the space station, Christina Cook. Christina, thank you for joining us.
It's great to be with you today.
Christina, we're coming up on 20 years of continuous human presence on the International Space Station, and you were one of those humans. What's it like to see a new milestone like this launch unfold after so much history already?
You're right, so much history indeed, and it's just been great to watch it all unfold. I think for me, the most exciting thing is how NASA is not only innovating in what we do, exploring the universe, pushing the boundaries, getting knowledge on the space station, bringing it back to Earth for benefits here, but in how we do it. We're innovating in the implementation of those goals and of our mission. And what that means is that bringing in the private sector, bringing in a commercial space economy for low Earth orbit, means space is going to be more accessible and more innovative. And it's just an awesome new era of history to be able to witness.
You hold the record for the longest single stay by a female astronaut in space. What's it like living aboard for so long?
Well, it is truly a privilege every single day. I have to say it's a beautiful thing to look down on the Earth and to be able to kind of contribute to a space program that you yourself have held in such high regard your entire life. I would say that the biggest challenge going into sort of those longer times is remaining vigilant. The engineers make it so easy to live on board the space station. Sometimes you forget you're actually surrounded by such a hostile environment. So remaining vigilant both day to day to have that appreciation that you wake up with every day, and then also being vigilant, knowing that things could take a turn for the worse at any time, and you have to be ready to react to that. So it's a great privilege, but it also comes with great responsibility.
You came to NASA after the days of the shuttle program, and you flew on the Russian Soyuz. What does it mean to have this private capability to fly astronauts to the station?
Well, I think it's just a great innovation in terms of our partnerships. You know, when we started out, it was individual countries pursuing the space exploration. We brought in the international aspect of it, and now we're really folding in that commercial aspect, bringing the innovation of all of our American industrial power and recognizing that the more partnerships we have, the more accessible, the more innovative space exploration can be. So it's an awesome time, and it brings with it so much more capability into the program as well. So it's not only how we're doing it, but it's what it brings.
We're looking forward to having this transportation from private companies. How does it help you do your job in space?
You know, I think one concept that we have in NASA for safety and to mitigate risk is called dissimilar redundancy. And here now we're bringing up a whole second way of getting crew to the International Space Station and getting cargo, last-minute cargo. So we're increasing how much science we can do on board the space station by twofold. We're increasing how we can, our options for getting items up, stowage items, supplies, provisions, science experiments. So we're really just banking on the extra redundancy to make the program that much more robust.
We're watching Bob and Doug go through the final phases of preparing for this launch. What's going through your mind so close to liftoff?
Oh, it is such a great day indeed. You know, it's interesting because I think it's not so much what is going through your mind, but what's not going through your mind. You know, you're not thinking about all the things could go wrong. You're thinking about enabling success by doing what you've been trained to do. One of the sayings we have is that on launch day, astronauts are sometimes the most calm people in the room. And I found that to be true on my launch day too. I think it's kind of this career culmination of everything you've learned, everything you've dreamed of, and you know that it's coming together in that day and that you're going to finally do what you're prepared to do, execute the mission, and it just really brings a sense of calm and readiness.
NASA astronaut Christina Cook, always an honor to hear from you.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
But once Bob and Doug arrive at the station, NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy will be ready to welcome them on board. So in anticipation of their launch, he had this message for them.
Hello, everyone. I'm astronaut Chris Cassidy, commander of Expedition 63 on board the International Space Station, flying 250 miles above the Earth. Like you, I'm excited about today's launch and the possibilities it will bring to America and to the world. But also, I'm very excited that two close friends will be arriving and joining the crew. I had the privilege of flying with Doug Hurley on both of our first shuttle missions back in 2009. Together, we came to the International Space Station and helped construct the amazing facility that it is today. Although this will be my first mission with Bob, it was my honor to follow him as the chief of the office when he left back in 2015 to begin training for this amazing mission. Personally, I've been very fortunate to fly in two different spacecraft. Launching from America on the shuttle, and most recently launching from Kazakhstan in the Soyuz. But I can't tell you how exciting it is to know that we're once again launching Americans from the coast of Florida. And finally, here's a story I'd like to share with you. Back in 1981, John Young and Bob Crippen launched on Space Shuttle Columbia, the very first space shuttle flight, marking the last time we flew Americans on a brand new vehicle.
434, Mike, QRE. Roger.
With them, they flew an American flag, representing America's technical prowess.
Roger, roll, Atlanta.
30 years later, that same flag was flown to the International Space Station. This flag remains here today, waiting for Bob and Doug. Our flag means so many things to our country, and this small piece of America represents what we'll be able to achieve together. We'll never stop exploring. And so Bob and Doug can take this very special flag home to Earth, where it awaits its next journey to the cosmos. In a few years, the first Orion crew will take this flag with it around the moon. All of this starts today. I'll be watching outside the window along with everyone else in America and around the world. I can't wait to look out the window and see my friends on close approach. Go Falcon 9, go Dragon, and go Bob and Doug. I'll see you soon.
And there again is a live look at Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where we are T-minus 1 hour, 41 minutes, 58 seconds and counting from liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket carrying Crew Dragon with astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley strapped inside. We can see some raindrops on the screen there. It looks like rain coming down at the pad, but we're still monitoring weather, and it sounds like there's going to be another decision point before they start fueling the Falcon 9 rocket, which is scheduled to happen at about T-minus 35.
Como podemos ver, la lluvia ha sido un poco más complicada de lo que esperado. Y pues estamos esperando a que esta lluvia se pueda calmar un momento. Esperemos que no afecte mucho ya que el lanzamiento es solo en 1 hora y 50 minutos.
Our team of us installed on STS-122, and I think about using this robotic arm that was made in Canada. The European Space Agency built the Columbus laboratory, and my job was to use that arm and attach it to the International Space Station. And as it was getting closer and closer, the motion just stopped, and I'm like, what is going on? And there are 4 ready-to-latch indicators that have a very slight spring force that I was moving so slowly with the hand controller, the translational hand controller, that spring force stalled out the motion. And Peggy Whitton was behind me, and she said, Leland, there's some commentary. Weather update, I think.
Go ahead, sir.
Hey, Doug, we're still waiting for a weather update expected at 18 Zulu. Therefore, the next assessment will be closer to the propellant load time. We are currently no-go on launch weather, but we are showing an expected clear of 1830 Zulu.
Okay, copy all. Thanks for the update.
So we just heard if they were to launch right now, the weather would be no-go. However, it sounds like there may be an opportunity if the weather clears, as it sounds like they expect it may. So again, we're gonna keep listening as we continue talking. If we start to hear any kind of chatter, especially if it's about the weather, we're gonna do our best to quiet down so that we don't step on that and everyone can hear it along with us. But Leland, you were just talking about the work on station and Peggy Whitson was getting ready to tell you something.
Well, so the Columbus laboratory is stalled out. It's about to be attached, and there were 10,000 people waiting. Their job security depended on me installing this thing properly.
Right.
And Peggy said, Leland, push just a little bit harder on the hand controller, and all 4 ready-to-latch indicators went green. And I was like, yes! And that was our primary mission objective. But that paled in comparison to what happened next. Peggy invited us over to dinner in the Russian segment, and we had this meal with people from all over the world, Russian, German, French, African American, Asian American. This diversity that we talked about earlier, were up there breaking bread at 17,500 miles per hour while listening to Sade's Smooth Operator. It blew my mind. It was Smooth Operator, right? You
What
know?
an appropriate song for the,
I know.
for the job too, right?
Wow, does she know? She knows now.
Yeah. And Dan Tani actually changed the song from Smooth Operator to Arm Operator. So you see Arm Operator.
I love it. Love it. And Leland, you actually, we were in another taped segment when you got a text from Drew Foystel. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, Drew Foystel, his good friend, just sent me a text saying that the families say hello to all who are watching and thank the nation and the world for their support and interest. And Chris Ferguson just actually sent me a text. He was the commander on STS-135 and one of my classmates from the 1998 class, and he says, way to go, Godspeed on Crew Dragon.
That's awesome. It's great to hear those words of support. Thank you guys for watching and everybody following along at home. I mean, the COVID-19 situation has been just a tough time for people stuck inside, homeschooling their kids, still trying to do their jobs, and so it's really cool to be able to watch this happening. And we see the pad closeout team. It looks like they are getting ready, or they've left the white room and they've already come down the crew access arm, so they are getting ready to leave the pad now. And we are going to go now to the Operations and Support Building 2, where Daryl Nail is standing by with NASA's Chief of Staff to talk to us a little bit about some of NASA's ambitions beyond the International Space Station and its work with the Commercial Crew Program. Daryl?
Yeah, that's right. We're here in the mission briefing room at the top of Operations and Support Building here, where there's a lot of important people that are gathering to watch the launch here. And one of those people, it's not me, by the way, one of those people that is important is Gabe Sherman, NASA's Chief of Staff. We appreciate you being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, Daryl.
You got kind of the insight of what's coming down the pike here at NASA. So of course today is Commercial Crew, and we're focused on that, seeding the commercial market. But what's off in the horizon for NASA?
Well, I'll just tell you, it's an incredibly exciting time to be at NASA, and you know this. I mean, you're here every day. But whenever you think about what we're doing with Commercial Crew, in the horizon in July, we're launching Mars Perseverance, which is just going to be an incredible thing for us. You look at the end of this year, SLS, the largest rocket in the world, is going through testing right now, going through green run testing, and we're hoping maybe by the end of the year we could even get it right out here to the Cape, which would be just an incredible achievement for our team. So there is no shortage of things to be excited about at NASA right now.
And it feels like everything is really starting to happen here recently with everything that you just mentioned. And if we get that first Artemis launch, that could be right around the corner as well.
Oh man, we're looking at I think late 2021 is what we're looking for. And so you think about SLS potentially moving from the green run to the Cape. You've got Orion finishing up its last little bit of testing. It moved from Plumbrook earlier this year, our station up there in Ohio, down to KSC. So we're looking at checking it out throughout next year, and hopefully we'll have the first integrated flight of SLS and Orion at the end of 2021. And I'm telling you, that is going to be a moment.
That will be exciting. Yeah. And there will be a thunderous boom right here at the Kennedy Space Center. So with Mars as the end goal, how does all of this get to that end point?
You bet. No, and I think
Bueno, en este momento se encuentran entrevistando al director de NASA. Y mientras eso sucede, vamos a ver cuál es la ganancia que va a tener SpaceX en este lanzamiento. Bueno, pues la misión Demo 2 va a ser un vuelo que es para evaluar la nave, que es la cápsula Dragón. Y esto es con NASA, debido a que NASA es la única institución que puede autorizar vuelos espaciales para cualquier compañía aeroespacial. Entonces, con esta evaluación, con este test de la cápsula Dragón que va a lanzar SpaceX, va a recibir una certificación por parte de NASA, debido a que esa certificación va a ayudar a SpaceX a llevar más humanos a otros lugares para hacer viajes espaciales. El siguiente viaje, el siguiente vuelo será el próximo año de SpaceX, llevando a la primer mujer a la Luna. Claro que sí, la primer mujer a la Luna. Vamos a esperar más información por parte de SpaceX, pero se espera que se llevará la primer mujer a la Luna y después se estaría llevando los primeros humanos a Marte. Entonces, por eso es que para SpaceX esta certificación es muy importante, ya que sin esa certificación SpaceX no podrá llevar humanos en viajes espaciales, ¿no? Eso es la importancia que va a tener este vuelo, especialmente para la cápsula Dragón, que es uno de los cápsulas que SpaceX está utilizando y que va a ser propulsada por el Falcon 9, el Falcon 9, que es básicamente el cohete que va a impulsar esta cápsula Dragón. Entonces, también el Falcon 9 va a tener dos etapas de lanzamiento. La primera etapa va a ser impulsando la cápsula Dragón hasta la atmósfera. Y después, esa es la parte que va a regresar a la Tierra, después de que propulse la cápsula Dragón. Y va a haber la segunda estación, o la segunda etapa, en donde va a haber otro mini cohete que va a impulsar la cápsula Dragón hacia la estación internacional. Y ahorita en estos momentos solo estamos esperando a que se llegue el momento del lanzamiento, esperando que el clima mejore, ya que pues tenemos lluvia en este lugar de lanzamiento, que es en la estación Kennedy, en Cabo Cañaveral, en Florida. El lanzamiento se va a llevar a cabo a las 3:22 horas, horario del este. Y ahorita solo estamos en cuestión de ese momento. El tiempo aproximado es 1 hora y media, en lo que el lanzamiento estaría preparado para ser efectuado.
Chief of Staff, we appreciate you joining us today and enjoy the launch. I certainly know you will if we're able to get that one off. We're going to toss this back now to Hawthorne, California.
Joining us now is SpaceX's
hasta California para entrevistar a esta.
Thanks for joining us again today for a second round.
You're welcome.
Could you tell us just a little bit about your background and what you do here at SpaceX?
Yeah,
claro que sí, es un empleado de SpaceX.
Entry and landing for Starship, which is SpaceX's next rocket after Falcon 9. And before that, I worked for many years on the same thing for Falcon. So hopefully today you'll see another one of those landings on a drone ship.
Awesome. And speaking of that, what
Él es uno de los ingenieros que ha trabajado con el Falcon 9. Han estado trabajando duramente para poder elaborar este cohete. Y bueno, pues ellos quieren usar un cohete que sea reusable.
And we've actually already started working with NASA on using Starship to send astronauts to the surface of the moon for the first time since 1972. Not only that, Starship will be refuelable on orbit, and the combination of those two things will let us send people basically anywhere in the solar system with more payload for less money than I think people have really been contemplating. I think for the first time we can seriously talk about things like lunar bases, or what SpaceX cares about most, a self-sustaining civilization on Mars.
Right. So what you're saying is I will have an opportunity soon to get on board one of those spaceships.
I very much hope so. Yeah.
So speaking of reusability and landing, I know you mentioned Starship will be refuelable in orbit, but Falcon does come back and land back on Earth. What are the challenges with actually landing on the moon and landing on a planet like Mars?
Yeah, well, you can't land like a plane because the moon and the Mars either have no atmosphere or have a very thin atmosphere, and even if you could, there's no runway that someone's built for you. So that's one of the reasons that we do propulsive landing on Falcon, because we want to figure out how to do propulsive landing. That fundamental architecture works on basically any planet. If you have no atmosphere like the moon, you do a propulsive landing burn all the way. If you have a thick atmosphere like Earth, you let the atmosphere slow you down as you float down, then do a short landing burn at the end. And for Mars, which has an atmosphere but a very thin one, you do something in between the two.
Wow, yeah, that sounds really difficult, and I'm sure there's been a lot of effort put into that. Can you tell us anything about what we're working on now to get us to a point where we can
Como podemos
do
ver
landing like that
en la
in such a
entrevista
harsh environment?
con el director del staff de SpaceX, ellos están tratando de crear una nave que pueda aterrizar en diferentes lugares, ya que, pues como podemos ver, si se quisiera aterrizar en la Luna, no hay una pista de despegue, así que ellos están tratando de crear un cohete que sea propulsado. De esa forma, ellos podrán aterrizar en diferentes lugares que no necesariamente necesite una pista de lanzamiento. Y además están tratando de que sus cohetes, sus naves, se puedan cargar con combustible mientras están en órbita, lo cual pues es un esfuerzo muy grande, ya que se tiene que igualar las velocidades y además se tiene que considerar que en el espacio no contamos con gravedad, y eso lo hace un poco más complicada la situación.
But you don't get to see the rocket afterwards. And what we would like to do with the reusability, what we've been able to do with Falcon 9, is see the rocket, inspect it, and because of that, we've been able to correlate our models pre-flight to what actually happens when you launch, re-enter, and land a rocket.
Right, instead of just guessing what happened to the vehicle after it's left.
Exactly.
That is amazing. Well, thank you again for joining us today for a second round. Hopefully the weather works with us today in a couple hours, actually. Let's throw it back to KSC with Marie.
¿Qué es lo que pasaría ahora si el día de hoy no se puede hacer el lanzamiento debido al mal clima que se vive en el lugar de lanzamiento? Bueno, se esperaría para mañana, el día de mañana a la misma hora se estaría haciendo este lanzamiento, ya que pues el clima no ha sido favorable desde la última vez que se trató de hacer este lanzamiento. Y bueno, en este momento pues solamente se está esperando a que todo esté en orden. Y al parecer tenemos que la lluvia se ha calmado un momento. Solo esperemos que se mantenga en este estado, ya que pues como podemos ver la situación no es favorable en este momento, el clima no es favorable. Y bueno, si tenemos algo de lluvia, esto pudiera provocar lo que son algunos tormentas eléctricas, y esto sería algo malo para la cápsula en el aire, ya que podría ser impactada por uno de esos rayos, y bueno, eso sería un problema para los astronautas en este momento. Se sigue monitoreando el clima, esperemos que no sea una complicación para este lanzamiento, y bueno, el lanzamiento estará efectuando en aproximadamente 1 hora.
traditions, with us, and flying with Doug and Bob is cool, but having more people. Yeah.
There's
See,
the dogs.
the puppers,
love
taking
the
the
dogs.
puppers to space. I mean, they're not.
They look ready to go.
They
too.
are ready to go. We just needed maybe some like SpaceX type suits for them, But that's what it's all about, exploration. Like the settlers going west, they took everything with them, and they started these new communities and these new traditions. And I think that's what we do with space travel. We start new traditions and communities and bring everyone together as one family, one civilization.
Absolutely. We're here for it. And knowing that the opportunity to fly to space as a private citizen is really just right around the corner, we have a new poll question on Twitter for you. If given the opportunity to fly to the moon, now we're talking the moon, would you fly to the South Pole where no one has ever been, or would you go to the Apollo 11 landing site? So those are going to be some interesting answers.
And while there is not a ton of cargo on today's mission, Dragon is carrying 2 very special payloads, aside from Bob and Doug, of course. The first of those payloads is a series of custom art pieces entitled Humankind by Los Angeles artist Tristan Eaton. These indestructible, double-sided paintings made from gold, brass, and aluminum celebrate how far humanity has come, as well as how far we still have to go. It includes a beautiful homage to the Saturn V rocket, as well as a nod to Bob and Doug's current ride to space. And you can find more images and information about these pieces on SpaceX's social channels. Next, in the spirit of inspiring the next generation of explorers, we wanted to celebrate the class of 2020, from kindergarten all the way to graduate school. So SpaceX and NASA invited students from around the world to submit their photo to fly on America's first human spaceflight in nearly a decade. Each graduate's photo was used to create a mosaic image of our beautiful planet Earth, which we printed, and it's now being flown aboard Bob and Doug's flight on the Crew Dragon spacecraft. We received nearly 100,000 photos. That's a ton, so thank you, and congratulations, graduates.
Yeah, I've got a couple of family members and friends who submitted their photos, so they're super excited about seeing their faces go to space in that beautiful mosaic. That was really cool.
And again, that's what it's all about, everyone coming together with their experiences and bringing them forward to space. And I think regular people flying to space, SpaceX is going to be flying, non-government people, non-military people, but people that have a desire to explore and do new things and traditions off planet, as we say sometimes.
Yeah, all this time since we've had the International Space Station, it's been government astronauts performing the research because
este lanzamiento que va a efectuar SpaceX también es un paso más para empezar con el comercio espacial. Por ahí hay algunas noticias de que se va a crear una estación comercial en órbita para que se pueda llevar turistas y se puedan quedar 1 o 2 noches en la estación comercial que se va a llevar a cabo en los próximos años. El boleto para este vuelo va a ser un poco caro. Se está pensando ahorita que sería de unos $2 millones para que se pueda volar al espacio. Claro, en el futuro esto a lo mejor pueda ser un poco más barato, pero en este momento pues eso es lo que se tiene en mente. El boleto puede costar de $2 millones a $7 millones. Entonces creo que para la gente que no tiene esa cantidad de dinero, pues va a ser un poco imposible en este momento. Pero ya en el futuro esperemos que estos tickets, estos pasajes se reduzcan a menos de esa cantidad, ya que pues es muy difícil para las personas poder tener esa cantidad de dinero. Pero solo esperemos que en el futuro esto no sea así y de esta forma se pueda ir al espacio y vivir esa experiencia que pues yo creo es increíble.
Triple checking everything to troubleshoot and solve problems and get us to this point. So it's just really awesome that we've made it to this point.
When you think about legacy, Katherine Johnson, who helped get John Glenn to space, her daughters are watching right now. And that, again, that legacy going forward to the future of space travel is powerful.
Wow.
And we heard from two icons of science and exploration on Wednesday, and we couldn't resist sharing these shout outs with you one more time.
Wow, we're making history again. The NASA program. I am there with you guys in spirit. Bob, Doug, good luck. I know you'll be fine. I'll be watching and got everything crossed, arms, legs. I'm tied in a knot. Can't wait for you to get back safely.
This is the first time a U.S.-built rocket has taken people into space in 9 years. It's quite an accomplishment. So for us at the Planetary Society, more rockets means more exploration. More people in space means more exploration. More countries involved in the endeavor of spaceflight means more exploration. This is how we know the cosmos and our place within it. So congratulations, SpaceX. Here's wishing your team, and the crew especially, a safe journey and the joy of discovery. Let's go.
So great to hear from William Shatner and Bill Nye, two very recognized.
NASA ha lanzado un aviso para todos los graduados del 2020, desde el jardín de niños, ¿verdad?, hasta licenciaturas, para que puedan postear, puedan enviar sus fotos de graduación a la página oficial de la NASA. Ellos van a poder enviar estas fotos hacia el espacio en el nuevo lanzamiento o el siguiente lanzamiento de SpaceX. Entonces es una invitación para todos los que se han graduado este año, ya que dado la situación del coronavirus, pues muchos no pudieron tener un festejo especial, así que es una invitación para todos ellos que tomen su foto de graduación y la puedan enviar a la página oficial de la NASA. Ellos podrán enviar este recuerdo hacia el espacio en el siguiente vuelo de SpaceX. Entonces, para todos los graduados, envíen sus fotos a la página oficial de la NASA.
The closeout team was able to get out of the Dragon capsule and seal up that hatch, which also got its own leak check and was confirmed successful. At this point, the closeout team is out of the pad. They're away from the BDA, the blast danger area, and weather operators are about to kick off their final checks on wind speeds at the pad, which are going to be used during the final go, no go for launch. So we're all keeping eyes on the weather right now. Before we get to that final go, no go, all the various teams at both NASA and SpaceX are going to do internal go polls, just making sure conditions are right with Falcon 9, the Dragon, the crew, the range, and the space station before the final go is given. So let's check back in with the man over in Houston, Gary, for a status and the team supporting the space station for their readiness for launch.
Thanks, Dan. The team here in Mission Control Houston remains go for launch. We're also very hopeful about that weather. All systems on board the station that are required to be healthy for this mission are continuing to look good. Chris Cassidy is wrapping up his workday, and we'll be watching Bob and Doug launch here in just under an hour. So station power and communication systems are normal. Computers and networks used for monitoring Dragon's approach have been checked out, and the cabins and the station cabin's atmosphere and pressure are as expected and ready to welcome 2 new crew members aboard. Mission Control will be closely monitoring Bob and Doug's flight and checking off milestones for most of the flight, and this very same team will be coming back tomorrow to be ready when Dragon gets in range of the International Space Station and we begin integrated operations and prepare for Dragon's docking. So I'll send it back. International Space Station team here is ready for launch. Go Falcon 9, go Dragon, and Godspeed to Bob and Doug.
All right, thanks, Gary. If you are just now joining us, you picked a really good time. We're just a little over an hour to launch. And welcome to our coverage for the mission known as Demonstration Mission 2 or Demo 2. Liftoff time still holding for 3:22 p.m. Eastern. Tracking no issues with Falcon 9 or Dragon. Everything good with the range so far. We're just really keeping an eye on that weather. Over the last 3 hours, our crew members, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, donned their SpaceX suits in the historic crew quarters suit-up room. After that, they walked out of crew quarters, just as every astronaut to fly from space from this port has done since Apollo 7. And then they were transported over to the pad, where the crew members entered the SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft that we're looking in live.
Today is a historic launch. It will be the first time a commercially built spacecraft will launch people into orbit, and the first time the U.S. has sent people to the space station from American soil since 2011 with the retirement of the Space Shuttle program. Over the next hour, we will conduct a series of polls to get ready for launch, have Bob and Doug arm the launch escape system, and begin fueling Falcon 9. Launch is set for 3:22 p.m. Eastern. This will include a 12-minute flight to orbit.
Podemos ver que hasta el momento todo se encuentra en muy buen estado. No se ha reportado ningún problema de comunicación entre la cápsula Dragon y las oficinas en tierra para poder monitorear el estado de estos astronautas. Ahorita solo se está monitoreando el clima para que todo esté preparado para el lanzamiento de estos dos astronautas, que va a ser por, podríamos decir, una nueva era, ya que se retoma el lanzamiento de astronautas desde suelo americano. Los últimos lanzamientos se han efectuado en Rusia utilizando sus herramientas. En este caso se estará efectuando desde los suelos de Estados Unidos. Esperemos que todo funcione de la manera esperada y no haya ningún problema. El cohete Falcon 9 se está ahorita cargando de combustible. Esperemos que no haya ningún problema y esperamos el lanzamiento que estará efectuando en al menos una hora. Así que invitamos a todos los amigos, invitamos a toda la gente que se pueda conectar a este canal. Mi nombre es Omar Salazar y les doy una cálida bienvenida a este video que estamos transmitiendo desde Atlanta, Georgia, con la participación de NASA.
Now the team will assess readiness for launch with a final go-no-go poll at T-minus 45 minutes, and that'll be followed by propellant loading starting at T-minus 35 minutes. Now, earlier today, Dragon operators also performed a series of checkouts of Dragon's flight systems. The spacecraft is also currently go for launch. Our NASA crew, astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, are currently inside Dragon. The hatch is closed. The SpaceX ground crew has left the tower. The next major event for Dragon is retract to the crew access arm that you can see currently alongside the capsule. That'll happen somewhere between T-minus 45 and T-minus 42 minutes. Now, the range is currently clear for launch from historic Pad 39A. The worldwide network of ground stations and the tracking and data relay satellites are ready to support Dragon.
Acabamos de confirmar que la lluvia se ha terminado y bueno, ahora sí tenemos cielos claros para poder hacer este lanzamiento. Todos los trabajadores, toda la gente que se encarga de preparar este cohete ha dejado ahorita la torre y ya estamos preparando para que se empiece el lanzamiento. Todos hasta el momento se encuentra en muy buenas condiciones y bueno, tenemos 50 minutos para el lanzamiento, así que estamos preparados.
May give us clearance of those conditions. So everything is focusing now on the weather brief at T-minus 1 hour. Also, we should hope to hear about the final check on the ascent corridor. That's the weather along the Atlantic seaboard in case Dragon had to abort on the way to space. The conditions there have been marginal, but the expectation that it would be good for launch. But we will get all of that coming up here very shortly prior to entering propellant load. Now today we are aiming for a launch at 3:22:45 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time, or 19 hours, 22 minutes, 45 seconds universal time. Once we begin loading propellant, there's no opportunity to change T0. So once propellant is loading, we're committed, and we'll get one chance at it today. But currently at T-minus 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 30 seconds, everything except the weather is go for launch.
Thanks, John, for that detailed update. We've got an extensive history now of flying Falcon 9 from the Florida coast, and just last year completed a test run of the mission. We're less than an hour from beginning here today.
The purpose of that mission was to demonstrate Dragon's capability to safely and reliably fly to and from the International Space Station. The success of Demo 1 was a really exciting moment,
Falcon
paved
9,
the way
Falcon 1
for
bleed
today's
is starting.
mission to where we are today. And right now we're getting ready to fly U.S. astronauts from U.S. soil for the first time since 2011.
Dragon and Falcon 9 together have years of operational experience, or what we refer to as flight heritage. As I mentioned earlier, SpaceX has successfully completed 21 flights of Dragon to and from orbit since 2010, including 20 trips to the International Space Station. Not only have we conducted thousands of hours of testing, we've also enhanced and added a number of safety features to Dragon.
Much of what was learned with the Cargo Dragon was leveraged in the design of this new vehicle. It's fully autonomous, which means it can basically fly itself, but also features that full manual override capability just in case of emergency.
And many of the other enhancements help towards SpaceX's goal of reusability and less refurbishment time between missions. So let's take a closer look at these advancements.
Standing at almost 27 feet tall from the very bottom of the trunk to the very top of the nose cone, Crew Dragon's comprised of two main elements. You have the capsule, which is designed to hold crew and pressurized cargo, and then you have the trunk, which holds unpressurized cargo as well as having a solar array and radiator.
And the nose cone at the top of the capsule protects the docking system as well as the guidance navigation control system, or what we call GNC. The nose cone opens for docking and remains attached to the Crew Dragon spacecraft, and that's unlike the previous version of Dragon, and that helps towards our reusability efforts.
Completely opposite the nose cone is that trunk. It has attachment points for Falcon 9, the Dragon capsule, and it can hold cargo. On the very outside of the trunk, one half of it contains a radiator that rejects heat from the active thermal control system into space. That's the white part, and that uses SpaceX's new picotiling technology. The other half contains the solar cells used to charge the spacecraft's batteries.
And though we only have 2 astronauts on board today, the spacecraft is actually designed to accommodate up to 7 crew members with modular seats that can be removed and replaced by additional cargo. The seats are made of carbon fiber and are custom sized for any crew member flying on board.
The control panel centered right between the pilot and the commander seats and has those 3 touchscreen displays that gives the crew insight into Dragon and even
Como
the
podemos
ability
ver,
to operate the vehicle and fly it.
la cápsula Dragón puede soportar hasta 6 personas a bordo. En este momento únicamente se están utilizando 2 debido a que es una evaluación de la cápsula Dragón. Además de estos 2 astronautas, la cápsula lleva información que se va a efectuar en la Estación Espacial Internacional. Se llevan pruebas para evaluar toda esta situación, para hacer algunos exámenes, para hacer algunos test de productos que se puedan implementar en la Tierra. Pero debido a que se requiere más detalle en esta investigación, pues se tiene que llevar al espacio para poder hacer la investigación correspondiente a estas pruebas.
But today, Doug Hurley is the spacecraft commander for this mission. He previously flew on 2 space shuttle missions as the pilot on STS-127 and STS-135, which was the final space shuttle flight. Here's a closer look at Doug Hurley.
Excited?
Very excited. Yeah, very excited.
You feel ready? Feel pumped?
Oh yeah, I think we're ready. I think we're certainly ready.
Joining the SpaceX Demo 2 test. He is a Marine Corps colonel and test pilot. He was selected as an astronaut in 2000. He piloted Space Shuttle Endeavour and Atlantis for STS-135, the final space shuttle mission. Introducing NASA astronaut Doug Hurley.
It's a
Aquí tenemos la presentación del astronauta que va a dirigir esta misión, Doug Hurley.
Just the sensations, the rumbling, the shaking, the acceleration. My name is Doug Hurley, and I'm the spacecraft commander for the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station. This will be the first time the Dragon had a crew on board, and so there's a myriad of objectives we want to achieve for this mission. What would work on orbit, what might not work on orbit, what would definitely work. To be able to just have the entire integrated team that's going to support us getting to and from space station, it was really neat being part of it. You know, we are the lucky ones that get to fly it, but we certainly not for 1 second take for granted the amount of effort that so many other people had to put into this to make it successful.
For Doug personally, he's worked so hard, I mean, through his entire life, to get to where we are right now. As a test pilot, this would be the dream to fly a new vehicle. So it makes me so happy to see that he gets to be part of this mission, the spacecraft commander. I'm just glad to see his hard work and his dream come true for that.
Esos dos pilotos que van a estar aquí a cargo de esta misión, pues realmente no van a hacer mucho, ya que la cápsula Dragón está programada para llegar a la estación espacial sin ningún problema, pero ellos también tienen el poder, tienen acceso a controlar de forma manual esta nave en caso de que haya algún problema durante el vuelo. Ellos pueden tomar el mando y navegar manualmente esta nave. Esperemos que eso no suceda, ya que si por algún motivo tenemos problemas, la nave sería perdida y en conjunto tendremos a estos dos astronautas perdidos en el espacio. Así que esperemos que nada de esto suceda y que todo salga bien. Esta cápsula ya se ha testado, ya se ha hecho evaluaciones antes, todo ha salido bien y ahorita en caso de que haya algún problema, pues se ha hecho las evaluaciones de que los astronautas estarían sanos en caso de que el Falcon 9 tuviera un problema durante el despegue.
It's going to be amazing.
Without a partner that has that same appreciation, I think it can be challenging for some folks. There's a lot of work and a lot of time that takes away from family that that my spouse appreciates, and I love her for that. On a deeply personal level, I'm really excited that my son is going to get a chance to see me launch into space. Being an astronaut has been a little bit of an abstraction thing for him because he's seen me do it in old videos, but he hasn't seen me do it for real. And so I'm excited for him to see this launch. Really, my role on the Demo 2 mission is to make sure that we get this vehicle tested and evaluated so that we can move on to more operational missions at the International Space Station. We've got a lot of objectives on board the vehicle that we need to accomplish to really make sure that it's good to go. We'll make sure all those systems are working during the test flight so that the future missions will have them available even if they don't plan to utilize them. Through years of the NASA team, helping to share that experience and teaching them the lessons that we've learned by going through this. Now there's another capability in the U.S. besides NASA to operate something of this magnitude. I want to thank the entire Commercial Crew Program team that's worked together to get to this point where we've got vehicles in the launch pad ready to head to the International Space Station.
If we look even further into the not-so-distant future, flying on a mission to space will be an option for more people as SpaceX plans to also fly private astronauts on board Dragon. Earlier this year, SpaceX signed an agreement with the space tourism company Space Adventures to fly up to 4 passengers on an orbital trip aboard Dragon as early as next year. And of course, it's NASA that is making private astronaut missions to the space station a possibility. We are looking forward to these missions, and we hope that you guys are all too.
All right, we are just 20 seconds away from T-minus 1 hour. This is going to be a really big moment that everyone's going to want to listen to. We're expecting a weather update, obviously hoping that the weather is improving, and so we should find out in the next 10 seconds or so. So we're going to stand by for a moment and wait for the Corps to give Bob and Doug a call, and then we'll all hear
Dragon,
the latest.
SpaceX, we're at T-minus 1 hour. You are go for section 6. When ready, report go for launch.
We'll put it in work.
Acaban de dar confirmación que todo se encuentra en muy buen estado y estamos preparados para que este lanzamiento se efectúe.
And that right there was a call for the crew to refer to some of their procedures. They do some final checks. You can see them checking harnesses, checking helmets, just making sure that they're strapped in and ready to go. And once they're done with that, the crew will report their readiness for launch.
Okay, se empieza a preparar, todos están checando que funcione todo perfecto. Vemos ahí a los astronautas que están haciendo algún movimiento, preparando
SpaceX
sus
Dragon in
cinturones.
6.4. Bob and I are go for launch.
Copy, go for launch. And next up will be go no GoPro at T-minus 45.
Ok, ya se dio la confirmación. Ya están listos para el lanzamiento.
All right, the crew is go for launch. So we are inside of 1 hour, still waiting for the weather update. But I mean, this day is one for the history books. We're returning crewed launches to station from American soil on American rockets. It's been almost 9 long years since we retired the space shuttle program. I remember that day. I'm going to remember this day. It's been a long road to get here, countless hours by thousands of dedicated professionals from NASA and SpaceX.
It's been an exciting week, but this last final hour is just so exciting right now. Today's mission will be Crew Dragon's second test flight and its first test with humans on board. It's been an awesome countdown so far. Weather, we're still waiting for that update, so it's still a watch item, but the crew is go for launch, so at T-minus 45 minutes, hopefully we'll get an update on that weather.
We've had a really clean count.
Monitoreando el clima, ya que hasta el momento tenemos cielos despejados, pero se sigue monitoreando el clima en caso de que haya algún problema. Como había mencionado antes, en caso de que este vuelo se cancele, estaremos viendo una nueva oportunidad para el día de mañana a la misma hora.
Friends and family gathered outside the operations and checkout building before they began that roughly 20-minute ride to pad 39A. Really touching moment, saying goodbye to their family, both their wives and sons right in front of them.
Yeah, very touching moment.
It's incredible to be able to watch these
moments. A
moments.
los astronautas que ya se están preparando. Esto fue horas antes de que se encontraran ya en la cápsula Dragón. En este momento podemos ver cómo están dando algunas fotos, ya sea para sus amigos, para sus familias, y bueno, están preparándose para entrar en el Tesla, que fue proporcionado por Elon Musk, ya que, pues como sabemos, él es dueño de esta compañía, bueno, de ambas compañías, SpaceX y Tesla.
And there you can see on your screen as they're coming through the crew access arm, entering
Y aquí
the white
podemos
room
ver
right before
que ya
they are able to ingress
esto
into
fue
the
hace
vehicle there.
horas, ya están preparándose para la entrada a la
Again,
cápsula
this is
Dragón.
from earlier.
Yeah, this all from earlier, and as we said, that white room, the last place on planet Earth, they're standing before they climb into Dragon for the ride uphill. SpaceX carrying over a tradition that NASA had where that was traditionally the room from Gemini, Apollo, and the space shuttle, that last place. about 30 minutes ago. We're back with some live video here. The team was able to close Dragon's hatch with Bob and Doug safe inside. So we are under an hour ago. Things are going to pick up as we get close to that go, no go to begin propellant loading and then arming the launch escape system.
The crew pull for readiness was completed at T-minus 60 minutes, and the Dragon pull for prop load is coming up here in just about 30 seconds at T-minus 55 minutes. And then following that will be T-minus 45 minutes will be the internal mission control Hawthorne pull, and then the launch director's pull for propellant loading. When we get to about T-minus 40 minutes, the crew access arm will retract, and Bob and Doug will get the call to close their visors and arm the launch escape system. This is the automated system in place that can fire the 8 Super Draco thrusters on Dragon to quickly separate the crew from the rocket, either on the pad or during the flight on the ride uphill.
And then once we reach T-minus 35 minutes, propellant loading for the Falcon 9 will begin. We got there on Wednesday. We got all the way down to about 17 minutes before launch before we had to cancel because of weather. But we're optimistic right now. Conditions have been improving, and so we're looking to press ahead once again into loading fuel onto that Falcon 9 rocket. Throughout the countdown, we've been getting some incredible views of the astronauts inside Dragon, just making all of their final preparations, some close-up views of their suits and on the displays as they just are strapped in and ready for launch. The teams often describe the suits as an extension of that Dragon spacecraft. You can always think of it as a mini spacecraft inside of a spacecraft. It's got all of the life support, everything that they need, just like the capsule.
The on countdown 1 technical pull is complete. No constraints to proceed into launch escape system arming and propellant load.
And there's that.
Muy bien, aquí tenemos la confirmación de que ya todo se encuentra en perfectas condiciones para el lanzamiento. Y como podemos ver, aquí tenemos el contador a los 53 minutos con 40 segundos para este lanzamiento.
All right, well, we did get the call out that the technical teams on the ground are ready for launch escape arming and propellant loading. Again, things starting to pick up, things really starting to feel real. Let's jump down real quick to the team at Kennedy, see if you guys are just as excited. I can't sit still right now. It's starting to feel real.
Yeah, it's hard to sit still in here, right, Leland?
That rocket fuel going through my veins still.
I know. It's so awesome when we see them sitting there in their suits. We're less than an hour away now. So far, things look like we might make it. We might make it. So I want to ask you what it was like the first time you put on a spacesuit when you knew you were going to space.
Oh, that was February of 2008. We were in the ONC building getting the pumpkin suits on. A little bit different than the SpaceX fly SpaceX suits, but it was kind of surreal, you know. And to think that all of these, I took 10 years of training to fly in space. It took me 10 years from when I got in the Corps in 1998 to flying in February of 2008. So it was a long road to get there, but it was so worth it and so sweet. And, you know, learning how to use the green apple, the connections for oxygen, for cooling, much different than these suits that we have here with SpaceX. And so it's a lot more complicated to go through that whole series of things that you have to do to make sure you're safe in the suit. But we've evolved, we're ready, and they look so cool and calm and collected in their suits and in the vehicle. They're focusing and getting ready to fly in space.
And there's so much excitement around the center. I know, Leland, you've been getting some messages. You got another message from another astronaut.
Yeah, Sunny Williams. Okay, so Sunny,
She's
Lauren,
kind of the best.
She's
Sunny is
she's
awesome.
commercial crew also.
She was one of the original cadre. She was one of the original 4 who trained with Bob and Doug from the beginning of the commercial crew program.
And she's one of my classmates. Look at her there. What is she wearing?
She is. Hey,
the
Sunny.
meatball.
I forgive you, Sunny.
No, she had the worm one on Wednesday, so she wore the meatball today. So
She's
it's
the best.
But now she can wear the worm ball, I guess.
Yes.
The worm ball, yeah, she can mix it up. But yeah, Sunny's awesome. She's training to fly on the Boeing Starliner in the not too distant future. So really glad she's watching and showing some love. So thanks a lot, Sunny, for sending that note. And again, we're looking at a live view of the Crew Dragon on top of a Falcon 9 rocket. You can see the crew access arm to the right of your screen. That's the hallway that Bob and Doug walked down to get into the White Room, which was the last place we saw them standing up before they climbed inside Dragon. And again, the wider shot there of Launch Complex 39A, where we are inside of an hour from liftoff, and I think we're just a couple minutes away from the pull we're going to hear before they start propellant load. Again, a 2-stage rocket there. And gosh, you guys, the weather looks not that bad. I mean, obviously that is not an official forecast, but it doesn't look quite as bad as it did Wednesday. We've got a little bit better odds. So there's the countdown clock. We're
to helium.
We're going to pause to listen to that comm.
Como podemos ver, ya se están llevando los pasos correspondientes para empezar con la preparación de lanzamiento.
If you're just joining us, we're less than 50 minutes from the scheduled liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket carrying Crew Dragon. And if we start to hear any kind of update on weather or polling, we will pause to listen in for that. But if things go as scheduled, we should be hearing the launch director verify go for propellant load at about T-minus 45 minutes. So we're going to send it over to Hawthorne to carry the ball. John Innsbrucker or Jesse, are you there?
This weather is go at this time.
Okay, escuchamos confirmación de que el clima está en perfectas condiciones para poder hacer el lanzamiento.
And there you heard that call out. So far we have good weather. We are go for launch today. This is getting really exciting. I don't know about you, Dan, but my heart is beating pretty fast right now.
Yeah, we've been waiting for those words since Wednesday.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we did hear a call to the crew, just in case you missed it, that they were only tracking one final weather constraint. It was the cumulus cloud rule. They were expecting it to clear up within 10 minutes, and it's cleared up now.
Hasta el momento todo se encuentra perfecto para el lanzamiento. Solo esperamos que todo se empiece a preparar para este lanzamiento. Solo se necesita hacer unos cuantos ajustes para que se efectúe el lanzamiento en lo que estaba planeado. No hay ningún retraso, al contrario, todo está funcionando. Todo está saliendo de una forma excelente.
As a reminder, here in the control room, we'll be closing doors here once we start with propellant load. Any last-minute bio breaks, please go ahead and accomplish those in the next few minutes.
Volvemos a escuchar la confirmación. Ya se dio la luz verde para empezar a cargar el combustible requerido para este Falcon 9, que va a ser el que va a propulsar la cápsula Dragón en unos cuantos minutos.
We're continuing to count down. As you just heard, the launch director and launch team are preparing for the readiness for launch poll. Now, the launch director is currently checking with Dragon mission director, NASA launch manager for their readiness. And actually, it sounds like everybody is good there. The launch director will then ask the team, he'll tell them the poll is open, and the 13 members of the SpaceX launch team will be electrically polled for their go to load propellant, as well as continue all the way to launch. Now, we will hear that poll results and a briefing from the launch director at about T-minus 45 minutes. The good news right now is that the weather is go. All the conditions that were read shortly a while ago at T-minus 1 hour have cleared. We're, as the weather forecaster said, cautiously optimistic. Currently, the probability...
Poll is complete. We're go for propellant load.
Ok, vemos condiciones favorables. Se empieza a cargar en este preciso momento los últimos... se empieza a cargar lo que es el combustible al Falcon 9. todos, el director de la NASA y el director de SpaceX, todos ya están en perfectas condiciones para poder llevar a cabo este lanzamiento. El clima, bueno, se sigue monitoreando el clima, pero hasta el momento todo se encuentra de una forma genial. El clima está en buena situación para poder hacer el lanzamiento.
Upper altitude balloons show that conditions are acceptable. The red weather conditions have cleared up, the last one being cumulus clouds. And the probability of violation is set at 30% right now, so that's 70% chance of good weather. We're continuing to watch. There is about a less than 10% chance of lightning. We're also watching the abort corridor off of the Atlantic coast. In case, for example, at stage separation, Dragon had to abort into the ocean. The conditions there are acceptable. There has not been lightning lately. The weather, winds are good, light rain. It is go, but NASA is going to continue to watch those conditions.
En este momento se está preparando ya la plataforma para cuando regrese el Falcon 9, ya que esa parte, la primera etapa del Falcon 9 es la parte que regresa a la Tierra. Entonces se está preparando la plataforma para que ya todo se encuentre en buenas condiciones para aceptar esta parte del satélite que regresa a la Tierra.
Imminent or occurring for Dragon manual escape flight rules. A reminder on fire alarm instructions. In the event of a fire alarm, key operators.
Como podemos ver, el andante se empieza a retirar de la cápsula. Ya todo está listo para el lanzamiento. Solo esperamos la aprobación de los directores, tanto de NASA como de SpaceX, para que esto se lleve a cabo.
We're inside T-minus 44 minutes, 5 seconds. Crew access arm retracting away. SpaceX launch director is given the final brief to the crew. And we will be beginning propellant loading at T-minus 35 minutes. So right now on Falcon 9, ready to get into propellant loading. Dragon, crew, getting configured, set up. The arm is pulling away. The range is go for launch. They continue to monitor the air.
Podemos ver que los astronautas se están configurando o se están preparando para el lanzamiento, tener las configuraciones necesarias que se requiera para este lanzamiento. Recordemos que la estación de despegue es en Florida, en Cabo Cañaveral, y estamos ya preparándonos para el lanzamiento.
Around the world. So we'd like to know, is this your first time watching a launch live, not counting Wednesday? And if not, how many have you seen before? Tell us using the hashtag LaunchAmerica from your favorite social media platform. And with that, at T-minus 42 minutes, 50 seconds, conditions are go, and we are counting down for an on-time launch. Let's send it back over to Kennedy Space Center as the action begins to pick up on the pad.
Dragon, SpaceX, you are go for Section 7, close visors and arm launch escape system.
Ok, empiezan a armar el sistema para el lanzamiento.
All right, the countdown clock is continuing to tick. My heart is continuing to beat 5 million beats a second. And we are getting so close.
SpaceX Dragon in 7.2. Visors are closed. We're arming launch escape system.
Copy.
And as you just heard, the crew is arming the launch escape system. That is one of the absolute last big milestones.
Ok, acabamos de pasar la última etapa técnica para el lanzamiento. Ya se empezó a armar el sistema para el despegue. Como podemos ver aquí, la cápsula cuenta con 3 pantallas. Son 3 pantallas touchscreen, una para cada tripulante y tenemos una pantalla principal en donde podemos ver todo lo que está sucediendo en la cápsula, midiendo todos los sensores y recordando que pues esta cápsula Dragón ya se encuentra configurada para que vuele hacia la Estación Espacial Internacional. Los astronautas no tienen que hacer absolutamente nada. Ya todo se encuentra programado en la cápsula para que puedan llegar hacia la Estación Espacial Internacional. En caso de que haya algún problema, los astronautas tienen la oportunidad de usar o trabajar en forma manual en la cápsula para poder hacer los ajustes necesarios en caso de que pues haya algún error en la configuración automática de esta nave. Y volviendo a mencionar también que la cápsula pues está hecha para 6 tripulantes. En este caso únicamente se lleva 2 debido a que es una evaluación de la cápsula Dragón de SpaceX. Se está haciendo una evaluación para que SpaceX reciba una certificación por parte de la NASA para poder llevar humanos al espacio. El primer vuelo, que es se está haciendo la misión de evaluación a la Estación Espacial Internacional. El próximo año se espera que lleven a la primer mujer a la Luna. Y más adelante, bueno, se espera con los primeros tripulantes hacia Marte. Esto habilitará también la forma para crear una estación comercial y se pueda llevar turistas al espacio. La idea hasta el momento es tener alrededor de 2 noches en la estación comercial y esto SpaceX sería la compañía la que estaría llevando o haciendo estos vuelos comerciales. Hasta el momento se ha mencionado que los tickets para este vuelo comercial espacial hasta el momento se está considerando como de 2 millones a 7 millones de dólares para llevar humanos a esta estación comercial. Debido a que es muy caro, no muchas personas van a tener esta oportunidad de hacerlo, pero esperemos que en el futuro este precio sea muy bajo y todos podamos disfrutar de esta experiencia de vivir en el espacio. Hasta el momento tenemos todo claro, la situación se encuentra en muy buenas condiciones y solo esperamos a que se termine de cargar el combustible al Falcon 9 y que se dé luz verde para el lanzamiento efectuado en aproximadamente 30 minutos.
So we have those 2 identical ships, one in the Atlantic, one in the Gulf of Mexico, and our space operations team can redirect the spacecraft to go to whichever site is the safest option for the crew at that time.
And with the vehicle, in almost any scenario, it sounds like the vehicle will land into the ocean. And it may look like a gentle landing into the ocean, but it's a pretty dynamic event happening. And you mentioned there are teams that are ready to go and rescue the vehicle and the astronauts on board. How do you prepare for something like that, especially with so many different scenarios that could happen?
Sure. So we're lucky to have had about a decade of recovery experience with Cargo Dragon 1 in our previous trips to the International Space Station. That, along with our booster recovery missions, we've got a great team of recovery operators here who have a lot of offshore experience with our spacecraft. The system, though, that we took that experience, we built up a new crew.
Dos barcos, plataformas, uno en el Golfo de México y el otro en las costas de Georgia. Esto para estar preparados en caso de que haya un problema en el despegue de la nave y se requiera un aterrizaje de emergencia. Entonces, hasta ahorita tenemos 2 plataformas disponibles, una en el Golfo de México y uno en las costas de Georgia. Esperemos que nada de esto sea necesario, pero ya tenemos a todo el personal de NASA y de SpaceX preparados para este lanzamiento.
Awesome. It sounds like Bob and Doug are in some really good hands and will be safe no matter what occurs on the vehicle. So thank you, Nick, for joining us again, for walking us through all of those details. I hope you're just as excited as we are for a launch coming up here very, very shortly now. So we're going to send it over to KSC to Lauren.
Thank you, Jesse. So as you just heard, fueling is about to begin at T-minus 35 minutes. We are about 50 seconds away from that. And so we're getting really, really close to the first launch of astronauts into orbit from American soil since 2011. The launch escape system is armed, which, as you know, happens before fueling. And Dragon propellant load, that's the propellants that are inside of the Dragon capsule, not the rocket. Prop load for Dragon took place weeks ago and just a few miles down the road in what we call Dragonland. And those propellants, they are MMH, or monomethyl hydrazine, which is the fuel that we use. It's hypergolic fuel. And NTO, or nitrogen tetraoxide, that's the oxidizer. Those two come together and they ignite in space to propel the vehicle. You don't need that TTEB or a third thing to ignite, because hypergolic propellants don't require it. You just need the fuel and the oxidizer. And as you just heard, propellant load has started on Falcon 9, and that's awesome. All right, so that bipropellant system feeds all of the engines on Dragon. So Dragon has 12 service section engines in each. So there's 3 in each quad, 3, 3, 3, and 3. Those are used for on-orbit maneuvering for Dragon. There's also 4 additional Dracos that are underneath the nose cone for large Delta V maneuvers that the vehicle will perform. But the engines that Nick Picone was talking about earlier are Super Draco engines. We have 2 in each quad of the vehicle, so 8 total. And those are bigger engines with a high flow propellant system, and those are what lift Dragon off of Falcon 9 in the unlikely event of emergency that requires us to get off of Dragon, off of Falcon. Now, you probably remember, let's see, a Mercury, Apollo, Soyuz, they have that big pointy tower on top. That's the launch escape system for those vehicles. It is actually just another rocket on top of the spaceship that lifts the vehicle off. In the case of Dragon, our escape system is integrated into the
Como podemos ver, el Falcon 9 se encuentra preparado para cualquier situación. En este caso, si por alguna razón el Falcon 9 explotara durante el despegue, tenemos un escape de emergencia en el caso para que todos los astronautas puedan escapar de forma segura de este Falcon 9 en caso de que hubiera algún accidente. Como podemos ver, Falcon 9 o SpaceX, ellos se prepararon muy bien para poder llevar un viaje sano para los astronautas que en esos momentos pues se están preparando para este lanzamiento que desde hace una década pues se va a hacer desde suelos americanos.
Now that fueling is underway, it's been going on for about 2 minutes now, so they have that safety capability ready to go on standby in an instant if they need it. And so we want to go over to Hawthorne now for an operational update from John Insprucker. John?
Fuel and stage 2 fuel, all flow rates tracking nominally.
We're at T-minus 32 minutes, counting down these final minutes. Everything's still looking good for Falcon 9 and Dragon for an on-time launch. Falcon 9 did begin propellant load at T-minus 35 minutes at planned. Now on the Falcon 9, we use a fuel and oxidizer as the propellants that power it. The fuel is commonly known as RP1. That's rocket propellant grade 1.
Como podemos ver, ya se está creando, o ya se está efectuando el cargamento de combustible para esta nave. Ya se está preparando para el despegue, que se efectuará en 30 minutos. Hasta el momento tenemos un buen clima. Todo se encuentra de maravilla, aunque el equipo de NASA y SpaceX siguen monitoreando el clima para estar seguros de que este lanzamiento se efectúe. En caso de que este lanzamiento no se lleve a cabo, la siguiente oportunidad que se va a tener para el lanzamiento sería el día de mañana a la misma hora. Esto debido a que pues la estación espacial internacional se encuentra sobre nosotros o sobre el lugar de lanzamiento, para que se ocupe menos combustible a la llegada de la cápsula a la estación internacional. En este momento se está llenando, se está cargando combustible en la etapa 2 del satélite del Falcon 9. Vuelvo a repetir, tenemos dos etapas en el Falcon 9. La primera etapa es el cohete que va a propulsar la cápsula Dragón hasta la superficie de lo que es la primer capa de la Tierra. Una vez que llegue a esta altura, ese cohete regresaría a la Tierra y la cápsula tendría un segundo cohete, en el cual este segundo cohete impulsaría la cápsula hacia lo que es la Estación Espacial Internacional.
They've been through most of a propellant load, and they are now experiencing those sounds and vibrations.
Stage 1, cryo helium load started.
No problems. They are go to support launch. Weather, the last of the red conditions cleared up about 15 minutes ago. Everything is marginal but acceptable on the weather. We'll continue to watch all the way through the countdown. Now, as a reminder, today we are now into an instantaneous launch window now that we've begun propellant loading. So at this point, if we hear a hold for any reason, we'll have to stand down and target our backup launch opportunity tomorrow, May 31st.
Thanks, John. For Demo 2, Bob and Doug's flight to station will take about 19 hours, and their journey is fairly similar to the trip.
Tenemos también que los astronautas estarían llegando a la estación internacional el día de mañana. En caso de que el lanzamiento se efectúe hoy, los astronautas estarían llegando a la estación espacial internacional el día de mañana por la madrugada. Ese es el tiempo de llegada de los astronautas a la estación espacial internacional.
Once we hit T0 and a successful launch occurs, we will watch Falcon 9 and Dragon make their ascent until the Falcon 9 first and second stage separates and sends Dragon on its way to the space station.
And at this point, mission operators will prepare Dragon for on-orbit operations for the vehicle.
Aquí podemos ver la trayectoria que se va a estar efectuando en la estación internacional y cómo se estaría llegando utilizando la cápsula Dragón hacia la estación internacional.
The next Dragon will make its approach and actually dock with the space station. And this is a very different process from what we've seen with Dragon cargo deliveries in the past, which use a process called berthing. Berthing requires a spacecraft to approach the station and then stop so a crew member can maneuver the station's robotic arm to capture the spacecraft. Docking on this version of Dragon can be done autonomously with no crew on board the station. It's typically a faster process, both when arriving and leaving, but it does still require.
Vuelvo a repetir que los astronautas pues no tendrían que hacer mucho, ya que el vuelo está programado, todo va a ser de forma automatizada. Se espera que en la estación internacional un brazo robótico pueda capturar la cápsula Dragón para que se pueda conectar con la estación internacional. Como este vuelo se encuentra programado, en caso de que haya algún problema con el sistema, pues los astronautas tienen o pueden tener acceso de forma manual a la nave y de esta forma poder tripularla y hacer lo necesario para que se pueda conectar con la estación internacional.
It's going to include events like the trunk separation, closing of the nose cone, a deorbit burn, and then eventually as they get into the atmosphere, the deployment of the drogue and the main parachutes, and all of that ends with splashdown right off the Florida
coast. Se encuentra mostrando la información de cómo la cápsula regresaría a la Tierra. En este caso, esto se está programando o se piensa que en 4 o de 1 mes a 4 meses esta cápsula estaría de regreso a la Tierra. Se espera que todo salga bien.
Today, if you're just joining us, we are now 25 minutes, 46 seconds and counting from the first launch of astronauts to the International Space Station from U.S. soil in 9 years. This will mark the beginning of a new era where more people will be able to fly to space than ever before. And we want to share with you the results of a poll we asked a little earlier. If you could go to the moon, now it's not where the astronauts are going today, they're going to the space station, but if you could go to the moon, would you rather visit the South Pole where no one has been before or the Apollo 11 landing site? And it was a pretty even split. We had 46% of you say you would go to the moon's South Pole. And
vuelvo a repetir que este vuelo de SpaceX en conjunto con la NASA es para recibir una certificación y poder llevar humanos al espacio. La siguiente misión de SpaceX sería la Luna y después estaríamos viendo la próxima misión de SpaceX, que sería llevar a los primeros humanos a Marte. Para el viaje de la Luna tenemos a la primer mujer que estaría pisando la Luna. Esto es realmente impresionante, ya que por primera vez estaríamos viendo a la primer mujer astronauta pisar la Luna.
That's true.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we're going to learn more from going where we've never been before.
Exactly.
And so we need to go to the South Pole too. And we are thrilled to see all of you following along online. Thank you for answering our poll. And we're going to go over to Tahira, who's been monitoring all the action with less than 25 minutes to go. Tahira, I'm sure things are heating up online.
Hey, Marie, I mean, you're completely right. Now that we have that go for launch, people are on the edge of their seat right now, waiting on this historic moment to take flight. As you can see, photos are still coming in of just everyone around the country showing their excitement for this launch. And it's really been a touching thing to see how everyone's kept this excitement going from Wednesday's first attempt. So we just took a look at numbers, and we are now over 3 million people tuning in for this historic launch. And so for me personally, I just want to wish Bob and Doug the best of luck. This will be my own first time watching humans lift off to space from the United States, and it's just going to be a super emotional moment. For that, Marie, back to you at Kennedy for these last minutes before launch.
All right, thanks, Tahira. And Leland, we got 23 minutes and some change to go. What do you think Bob and Doug are feeling right now?
I think, they're very calm, cool, and collected as test pilots, but I think they're thinking about what are the steps that I have to take if a malfunction or something happens. And so the nominal stuff is all kind of automated, but if something happens where they have to intervene with those touch screens, that's what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm. And we're just inside 23 minutes now. So on Wednesday, we were 5 minutes further in the countdown when we heard that call.
Como última nota, esperamos que el Falcon 9 alcance una velocidad de 17,000 millas por hora para que pueda alcanzar la estación internacional y se pueda acoplar a esta estación.
I have to say, and to all of my friends who work with them every single day, the feedback is always just what great people they are,
right.
And just how not just bright and sharp they are, but just good people.
Right.
And around the office, we often refer to them as the dads.
Yeah. The dads?
They're the dads. They're dads. They are dads.
Okay.
And we've met their families. And when you see people on that very personal level, it starts to mean so much. They are a part of our team. You know, they're not a customer. They're our team. They're not a payload.
Okay,
They're our team.
estamos contando y podemos ver aquí que ya tenemos nuestro marcador en 21 minutos aproximadamente para que se efectúe este lanzamiento. Se sigue monitoreando el clima. Podemos ver que todo se encuentra en perfectas condiciones y esperemos este lanzamiento en 20 minutos. Aquí tenemos a los encargados del vuelo en tierra desde nuestra estación en Houston, Texas, que se encuentran listos ya para este lanzamiento.
From the station, hope to be capturing those. We'll have the launch view and the big screen up front, and everyone's excited to see our 2 crew members on their way to the International Space Station. But before we get to it, I just want to pass on good luck from the entire flight operations community here in Houston. It's always exciting to be doing something wholly new and history-making with station operations, and we can't wait to see our team members Bob and Doug in low Earth orbit and heading to the International Space Station. That's it from us here in Mission Control Houston. I'll send it back over to the team in Hawthorne for the latest happening there. John.
T-minus 20 minutes, 30 seconds. We're
Strong
continuing
backfill
to count down. Everything is still looking good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon. 22 minutes, 45 seconds after the hour.
Stage
right
2
now on the
RP1
right-hand
mode is complete.
side, you can see a large white cloud coming off of the strongback. That is normal.
Tenemos que la segunda parte del Falcon 9 se acaba de llenar de combustible. Entonces, como podemos ver aquí, una nube de humo se está mostrando desde el Falcon 9. Se empiezan a preparar para este lanzamiento.
Fuel loading on the second stage, I believe we just heard the call out that it is complete. First stage fuel load is continuing, and right now that's a little more than that's about 60.
Podemos notar que la primera estación, la primera etapa del Falcon 9, todavía no se ha terminado el llenado. Estamos esperando a que nos den esta notificación de que la primera etapa se ha llenado completamente de combustible y bueno, en este momento podemos ver que se encuentra a preparar para este lanzamiento. Como podemos ver, tenemos 19 minutos para el lanzamiento. Espero que todos estén disfrutando este momento.
Now on the Dragon side, the Dragon mission director and the team there are reporting no issues. They've done their communications checkouts. The crew access arm, as you can see, is retracted away from the spacecraft. The crew is strapped in and they are ready to go. Now, final instructions will be going to the crew at T-minus 10 minutes. The crew displays will be configured for launch, and that setup will give astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley insight into how the launch is proceeding and provides constant updates on vehicle health. We've already heard the crew give their go, close their visors, and get ready for launch. For Dragon, it'll enter terminal count at T-minus 5 minutes. When it transitions to internal power, we'll hear continued callouts on the countdown net as we get close to 0 and to liftoff. But right now, at T-minus 18 minutes, 15 seconds, everything continues to be go for an on-time launch. So Dan, Jesse, things are looking pretty good. How are they doing over at your stand?
Things are great from about 15 feet away from you, John, and honestly, things are looking pretty great down at the pad there. We're seeing a lot more blue in the sky. Green is the color we want when we're talking about weather, and that's where we're sitting right now. So we're continuing to count down. We are under 18 minutes away from liftoff. Again, it's an instantaneous liftoff it's going to be 12:22 and 45 seconds here on the West Coast, 3:22 and 45 seconds over on the East Coast there in Florida. Just a reminder, it's going to be about a 9-minute ride up to orbit for the Falcon 9 and Bob and Doug on board Dragon. It'll be a two-stage flight. So we'll see the first stage fly until we hear MECO, or main engine cutoff, about 2.5 minutes into flight. After that, the second stage will take over and continue to power them the rest of the way. Second engine cutoff comes in just under 9 minutes at about 8 minutes and 44 seconds. Following that second stage completing its job, it'll continue to coast for about 3 minutes. It'll do a slight attitude adjustment and null out any rate, so make sure it's not in any kind of a spin before they do separation. So that's when the Dragon spacecraft will physically separate from the Falcon 9 vehicle, and Bob and Doug will be flying free. It's about a 19-hour ride if we launch today on time. So that means Bob and Doug will get on orbit.
Podemos
They'll
ver
have
que el viaje, el vuelo va a tomar 19 horas para llegar a la estación espacial. En 9 minutos aproximadamente, la cápsula Dragón estará en órbita, ya listo para empezar su viaje hacia la estación espacial internacional. Podemos ver, además, si están interesados en saber un poco más de esta situación, pueden accesar a unos videos que yo tengo en mi canal y ahí podrán ver algo de información acerca de esta situación, ya que se encuentran 3 etapas de órbitas. Tenemos la órbita baja, la órbita media y la órbita alta. En este momento se espera que la cápsula alcance la órbita baja y después de la órbita baja estaría llegando a la Estación Espacial Internacional, que se encuentra en la etapa o en la órbita media.
Countdown is clean today, just like it was Wednesday. We did clear the weather hurdles sooner than we did on Wednesday. And the only thing we're watching right now is downrange weather and lightning at the staging location.
Of course.
But we will clear that hurdle at T-minus 7 minutes.
Awesome. Great. Very exciting. Now I'm going to throw it back to 2012 because you were on console for Dragon when it was first making its way to the space station. How does that experience compare to today?
Stage 2 locks is on the DPs.
So I was
Dragon
nervous
on the way.
then. I stopped getting nervous for launches. Today I'm nervous again. Super nervous. Stomach and throat.
Understandable.
No, it's a fantastic day today. I'm really excited. The team is pulled together. It's such a professional operation.
El conteo de los 14 minutos listos para el despegue. Ya podemos ver que la nube de humo o de vapor ha disminuido y se prepara ya toda la tripulación para este lanzamiento.
Well, I want to thank NASA, of course, for their generosity and their help with getting to this place. I want to thank all the SpaceXers who have come together to make this moment in history. And I want to thank Elon for hiring me.
We thank Elon for hiring you as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you get back to mission control. And good luck with launch today.
Thanks, Jesse, and Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
Well, we are so excited. We are just a few minutes away from countdown, so we are going to turn it over to Dan and John for the final minutes in terminal count. Take it away, John.
T-minus 13 minutes, 30 seconds, continuing to count down. We're continuing to load fuel onto the first stage. That should finish up in just about 6 minutes. Fuel is completely loaded on the second stage. That's closed out. And we are continuing to load liquid oxygen on both the first and second stage. The liquid oxygen load beginning on the second stage just about 3.5 minutes ago.
Acaba de confirmar que el cohete se encuentra completo de combustible ya para el lanzamiento y se empezó el cargamento de oxígeno líquido para la primera y la segunda etapa. En este momento pues ya tenemos 12 minutos y esperamos muy ansiosamente este despegue del Falcon 9 lanzando la cápsula Dragón hacia la estación Espacial Internacional.
Next significant issue, callouts that we're going to hear will probably be inside the T-minus 10 minutes when they talk to the crew.
El lanzamiento se
We'll
está
listen to that.
efectuando en
But at the
Florida,
moment, everything
en Cabo
continuing to
Cañaveral.
look good at T-minus 12 minutes and
Ahí
20
se está
seconds.
efectuando el lanzamiento. Pero tenemos que la oficina de control o el centro de control de este vuelo se encuentra en Houston, Texas. Ahí se encuentra la sala de control para esta misión.
We'll have some dueling boxes going on as that first stage is going to be coming home while the second stage is carrying Bob and Doug into orbit. Obviously, we'll be keeping an eye on our astronauts the whole way uphill. Some of the calls that you'll be hearing, as there will be what we call performance calls over the Dragon to ground the entire way uphill. And you'll just hear some of the SpaceX engineers calling out trajectories and booster performance. So we're always looking for that word nominal. I know that's one of John's favorite words. That's one of mine too. We want to hear nominal as much as possible up on the way uphill. You might also hear some number and letter combinations, and those correspond to the different abort zones that Bob and Doug are in during their flight uphill. There's 1A and 1B, which signify that they're on the first stage. Those carry them from there in the Cape all the way up to about the very top of North Carolina. And then we'll have 2A through 2E or 2 Echo, and that will be on the second stage, and that goes from North Carolina all the way up to about the tip of Newfoundland, so in the northern Atlantic. And then there is a zone of the northern Atlantic that we're going to avoid, and so you should hear the call out be something similar to...
Acabamos de tocar la marca de los 10 minutos ya listos para el conteo. Solo esperamos unos cuantos segundos para que se empiece el conteo para el despegue de este Falcon 9 que estará propulsando a la cápsula Dragón hacia la Estación Espacial Internacional.
As John I said, it'll pick up right at about 10 minutes. We'll wait for the crew just to confirm that their displays are in order. The crew is already strapped in and reported that they are go for launch. And we'll continue to watch the fuel gauges tick up on the Falcon 9 vehicle until fueling cuts off at just about 2 minutes prior to launch.
Dragon and SpaceX confirmed displays are configured for launch.
Acabamos de escuchar la confirmación para el lanzamiento y ya tenemos el conteo.
Displays are configured for launch.
Copy. Bob, Doug, on behalf of the entire SpaceX team, it's been a huge honor to help you get ready for today's historic mission. Know that we're with you. Have an amazing flight and enjoy those views of our beautiful planet.
Thanks, Jay. It is absolutely our honor to be part of this huge effort to get the United States back in the launch business. We'll talk to you from orbit. Thank you.
Copy all. Thanks for those words.
The SpaceX core, so again, that voice that's going to be talking to Bob and Doug throughout their mission from right here in Hawthorne, just offering a few quick words. The crew did confirm their crew displays are configured for launch. We are coming up on 9 minutes and counting.
We've gotten through T-minus 10 minute with the crew discussions. Activity is now going to switch over to Falcon 9. Our next major event comes at T-minus 7 minutes. We begin what we call engine chill. Pre-valves will open. Those currently separate propellants on the first stage from getting down to the Merlin engines. We'll open the pre-valves. That allowed fuel liquid oxygen to flow to the top of the pumps. And more importantly, when we open the valves, that'll allow us to begin chilling the 9 Merlin 1D turbopumps on the first stage engine. It'll take a few minutes to get them cold enough to where they would then be ready to pass the large amounts of liquid oxygen through the pumps and into the main thrust chambers when we get to engine ignition at T-minus 2 seconds. We don't want to try to run highly chilled liquid oxygen through a warm pump. You would flash that into gas, and running gas through a high-speed pump is not a good thing. So right now, we are waiting for T-minus 7 minutes. That'll start the engine chill. Shortly after that, we will also get the fuel shutdown.
Tenemos la confirmación que en 7 minutos ya se estaría efectuando el lanzamiento se iniciaría con la ignición del motor para el Falcon 9 que estará impulsando la cápsula Dragón hacia la Estación Espacial Internacional. Una vez más, volvemos a repetir de que pues la cápsula Dragón ya se encuentra configurada para que llegue a la Estación Espacial Internacional. Pero también los astronautas tienen la oportunidad de maniobrar esta nave en caso de que pues tengamos algún problema al momento del despegue, al momento de llegar a la Estación Espacial Internacional. Además, en la Estación Espacial Internacional tendremos un brazo robótico, el cual va a estar acoplando, estará ayudando a la estación, a la cápsula Dragón para que se acople hacia la Estación Espacial Internacional. Acabamos de confirmar de que se inician los motores. Ya están listos para empezar el despegue.
Liquid oxygen load on first and second stage will continue until the last 3 to 2 minutes of the countdown.
Tenemos liberación de presión para empezar ya el despegue.
One is just that densified kerosene or that rocket fuel that Falcon 9 is going to be used to power Bob and Doug to orbit today.
And stage 1 fuel is closed out.
Ahora tenemos la confirmación de que la estación o la etapa 1 del Falcon 9 se termina el llenado y ahora estamos esperando a que ya se efectúe el lanzamiento.
Liquid oxygen loading is continuing on both stages. You can see on the view on
todavía se está cargando el oxígeno líquido en las dos estaciones, la primera y la segunda del Falcon 9.
The densified liquid oxygen picking up the humidity from the Florida air.
It looks like at this moment we're a little more than 90% full on the oxidizer on the first stage, ticking up towards that 80% mark on the second stage. We'll be counting down all the way till about 2 or 3 minutes, as John and I just said, until everything is loaded in Falcon 9.
Heaters closing out.
And then we will be go for launch.
Dragon has transitioned to configure for terminal count. Vehicle tanks pressing for strong back retract.
We're pressurizing the Falcon 9 tanks. We're going to open the clamp arm around the second stage and begin to retract the strongback.
Ok, escuchamos la confirmación de que ya se está presurizando el Falcon 9 para que se empiece con el despegue.
Stage 2, RP1 bleed.
Launch director called out the strongback retract has started. On the left, you'll see it go back just a couple of degrees.
Stage 1, RP1 bleed.
We are just 4 minutes away from liftoff. Again, at this moment, Bob and Doug are really just laser focused on those displays. They have insight.
Acabamos de tocar la marca de 3 minutos, listo para el lanzamiento.
AFTS final setup started.
Acabamos de también confirmar de que ya el oxígeno líquido se ha terminado de cargar. Ya ahora sí nos preparamos para el lanzamiento.
MVAC igniter purges. Pogo bleed. Dragon has transitioned to terminal count and is on internal power. Stage 1, LOX load close out.
Okay, we're at T-minus 2 minutes, 42 seconds. Stage 1 LOX load is closed out. Stage 2 will continue to load for...
Podemos ver que ya la estación 1, la etapa 1 del Falcon 9 ya se acaba de cerrar. Solo esperamos de que se termine con la estación 2.
Coming off of the strongback, that'll be normal. That'll happen around
transitioning to
T-minus 1 minute and 40 seconds. We're going on internal power now.
Just a few seconds away from the Stage 2 LOX load being complete. It's been almost 9 years since we've been in this position. A lot of work done by thousands of people to get to this point. All our eyes focused on 2 now.
Stage 2 LOX load is closed out. Propellant fills are complete. Dragon is in auto idle.
Stage 2 LOX load complete. All fuel, all oxidizer on Falcon 9. 1 minute 34 seconds to go till launch.
Vamos a... Todo se ha terminado de llenar y ahora estamos listos para el lanzamiento. Esperemos que todo esté en perfectas condiciones.
Falcon 9 is in startup. Dragon is in countdown. FTS is armed for launch.
Ok, acabamos de llegar a la marca de 1 minuto, bueno, 50 segundos, y ya todo se encuentra preparado, el sistema se encuentra ya configurado para el lanzamiento. Esperamos el conteo.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
Damos confirmación, damos luz verde para el lanzamiento por parte de SpaceX.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Nos preparamos para
Stage
el
1
conteo
T-minus 15 seconds.
en 8 segundos.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA. Go SpaceX. Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
America has launched. And so rises a new era of American spaceflight, and with it the ambitions of a new generation continuing the dream. 20 seconds into flight, stage 1.
Podemos ver que ya se efectúa el despegue. Podemos ver las etapas que se va a llevar a cabo en la parte inferior de nuestra pantalla. Tenemos el lanzamiento ya en el aire.
Falcon power telemetry nominal.
M1D throttle down.
We're throttling down to get ready for the period of maximum dynamic pressure. We're in the throttle bucket. Reports say all systems are go.
En el lado superior izquierdo podemos ver la velocidad que alcanzó ya 1000 kilómetros por hora. Tenemos que alcanzar las 17,000 millas por hora para poder salir de la Tierra y poder llegar a la Estación Espacial Internacional. También podemos ver la altitud, que son, acabamos de cruzar la marca de 16 kilómetros por hora.
Bob and Doug pulling about 2.3 Gs, 2.3 times the Earth's gravity, already moving at over 1,500 miles per hour.
We've heard the call out for MVAC engine chill. That's getting the MVAC engine ready to light. That'll come at about 2:44 into flight. Right now, everything continuing to look good. Next major event coming up is going to be the triple. We'll have main engine cutoff.
Acabamos de cruzar la marca de los 3,000 kilómetros por hora y una altitud de 42 kilómetros. Hasta el momento no se ha presentado ningún problema, todo está bajo control. En 20 segundos estaremos esperando el despegue de la primera etapa de lo que es el Falcon 9.
We're throttling down the Merlin engines on the first stage. And we have Miko.
Miko.
2 Alpha.
Falcon stage separation confirmed.
Tenemos confirmación de la primera etapa ya efectuada. Esperamos que esta parte del Falcon 9 regrese a la Tierra. Y la segunda etapa acaba de iniciar.
Merlin 1D vacuum engine has ignited and is now carrying Bob and Doug into orbit. So they're going to continue under the power of this second stage.
Stage 2 propulsion is nominal.
Which will cut off at SECO, or second engine cut off at about 8 minutes and 44 seconds into today's flight. So a little over 5 minutes to go.
La segunda etapa se llevará a cabo alrededor de... La duración de la segunda etapa va a tener 9 minutos aproximadamente. Y bueno, acabamos de cruzar la marca de 7,000 kilómetros por hora con una altitud de aproximadamente 140 kilómetros.
Dragon SpaceX nominal trajectory. Acquisition of signal in Bermuda.
SpaceX Dragon nominal trajectory.
All right, here in nominal trajectory, so Dragon pointed in the right direction, continuing to make their flight uphill. Heard acquisition of signal Bermuda. That's one of the other ground stations that they're using to get telemetry and data back from this spacecraft.
Stage 2 propulsion is still nominal.
Little over 4 minutes, 40 seconds.
Como podemos ver, ya estamos por cruzar la marca de los 9,000 kilómetros por hora a una altitud de aproximadamente 190 kilómetros.
Nominal trajectory continuing.
En la pantalla del lado derecho podemos ver que la primera etapa está a punto de regresar a la Tierra. Se está configurando para que pueda entrar a la Tierra.
We're just about a couple minutes away from the entry burn, and that's where 3 of the 9 Merlin engines do ignite to help slow the vehicle down as it re-enters back into the Earth's atmosphere. And then after the entry burn will be the landing burn, which is just a single engine
Dragon SpaceX
burn.
nominal trajectory.
And you heard
nominal
starting chill for entry burn. There's that call out. They are still on a nominal trajectory on Dragon, still on second stage, and that's that MVAC engine on second stage on your left screen. Again, on your right screen is that first stage booster coming back towards our drone ship. Of course, I still love you. We're about a minute away from entry.
Podemos ver que en la pantalla del lado derecho, la primera etapa del Falcon 9 se encuentra en preparación para entrar a la Tierra, para regresar a su plataforma de despegue.
Stage 2 propulsion is still good.
A little over 3 minutes until Dragon physically separates from the second stage of the Falcon 9 after the upper
Dragon
stage gets a
SpaceX
chance.
nominal trajectory.
En lado izquierdo podemos ver la segunda etapa del Falcon 9 que se mantiene en una condición perfecta en trayectoria hacia lo que es la Estación Espacial Internacional. Podemos ver también que en el lado derecho se puede notar algunas propulsiones de lo que es la primera parte, la primera etapa del Falcon 9, que está a punto de regresar hacia la Tierra. En estos momentos podemos ver que efectivamente ha empezado a descender.
Well, that entry burn continues. We're just about a minute away from SECO. We'll have a number of events all happen in rapid succession. That'll be the second engine cutoff.
Stage 1
we'll be
entry
looking
burn
for that stage 1 landing burn shortly after.
Yeah, actually just within a few seconds of each other. It's such a cool view on your left screen, seeing Bob and Doug on Dragon. Right now you can see the displays that they are seeing right now themselves.
Terminal guidance.
And back throttle step.
Podemos ver que ya cruzamos la marca de los 22 kilómetros por hora y ya llevamos con una altitud de los 200 kilómetros aproximadamente. Podemos ver que ya la parte también, la primera etapa del Falcon 9 se encuentra en entrada hacia la Tierra.
You heard Shannon, so that just means they're in their final abort zones. If they were to abort at this point, it would either be an abort to orbit or to land off the coast of Ireland. Standing by for second cutoff confirmation.
And back throttle step. And back shutdown. Stage 1 landing clear.
Confirmation of SECO's second engine cutoff.
Now we are waiting for our first stage to make its way to our drone ship. Of course, I still love you.
Dragon SpaceX nominal orbital insertion.
Ok, solo aquí estamos viendo la plataforma en donde la primera etapa del Falcon 9 estará a punto de aterrizar.
What you're seeing on your screen is a live view of our drone ship, where our first stage will be coming down. Looks like we lost that live view, but we'll wait for confirmation of that landing shortly here.
Falcon 9 first stage successfully landed.
And there you can see on your screen, Falcon 9 has landed.
Podemos ver que ya la primera estación, la primera etapa del Falcon 9 aterrizó. Acaba de aterrizar en la plataforma. Todo de forma sin ningún problema. Se acaba de aterrizar. Mientras la segunda etapa sigue en funcionamiento, esperamos que el despegue de la segunda etapa termine y de esta forma la cápsula Dragón se dirija hacia la Estación Espacial Internacional. Vemos que el combustible acaba de terminar y que ya están marcando la separación en unos 20 segundos. Podemos ver que ya los astronautas también se encuentran ahí lanzando un pequeño dinosaurio.
And before Dragon initiates separation from the second stage, they do make sure to they do ensure that the vehicle is not spinning and it is in good condition before we separate.
That's right, the upper stage does small attitude maneuver using some cold gas thrusters built into the rocket body itself.
Exactly. So we do expect that separation to occur in about a minute from now, but they do wait until they have full confirmation that it is ready to separate. Such cool views. I cannot get over this view that we are seeing right now. Bob and Doug on the right screen inside of Crew Dragon out in space.
Yeah, already 200 kilometers over planet Earth, or a little over 124 miles, traveling in excess of 2,700 meters, 27,000 meters per second, or about 16,000 miles per hour.
Acabamos de cruzar lo que es la marca de los 27 kilómetros por hora a una altitud casi exacta de los 200 kilómetros de la Tierra. Solo estamos en espera de la separación por la segunda etapa de lo que es el Falcon 9.
It sounds like we had an expected LOS loss of signal with one of the ground stations. Waiting for confirmation now of that.
Dragon separation confirmed.
Dragon separation confirmed.
There is a great
la separación, la confirmación de la separación de la segunda etapa del Falcon 9 y podemos ver ahí cómo se encuentra la separación en nuestra pantalla del lado derecho. Y en este momento es efectivo la situación de que la cápsula Dragón se encuentra en el espacio rumbo hacia lo que es la estación internacional.
Dragon, Chief Engineer on Dragon to ground. Bob Doug, on behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying with Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
Thanks, Bala. Congratulations to you and the F9 team for the first human ride for Falcon 9, and it was incredible. Appreciate all the hard work, and thanks for the great ride to space.
Copy all.
Oh, and Mike, proud of you guys and the rest of the team. Thank you so much for what you've done for us today, putting America back into low Earth orbit from the Florida coast.
Copy all. Good luck. Godspeed.
Vuelvo a repetir, la cápsula Dragón ya está configurada para que llegue a la estación espacial internacional. Realmente los astronautas no tienen que hacer mucho en este aspecto, ya que ellos únicamente tienen que vigilar que todo se encuentre en buenas condiciones. En caso de que esto no suceda, ellos pueden tomar mando y pueden controlar de forma manual la cápsula Dragón.
More than 90 degrees, goes up to about, I think, 105 degrees, and that's going to expose the actual docking ring and the hatch that they're going to be going through once they attach to the International Space Station, and also 4 of those Draco thrusters, we call them the forward bulkhead thrusters, that are going to be used for these major phase burns or firings of those thrusters to actually raise their orbit gradually over the coming hours. Also heard good activation of the ECLSS, that's the Environmental Control and Life Support System. That's everything controlling their atmosphere, just keeping Dragon a nice, safe, habitable environment where they're going to be living for the next 19 hours until they arrive at the space station.
Right, exactly. And Falcon 9's job may be done for today, but the mission is not over. Crew Dragon's job is not done. As you can see, Bob and Doug are still inside Crew Dragon, making their way. It will be a 19-hour trip to the International Space Station before they dock tomorrow morning.
Como podemos ver, el vuelo tomará aproximadamente 19 horas, así que para el día de mañana, a muy temprana hora, estos astronautas estarán conectándose con la Estación Espacial Internacional. Vuelvo a repetir de que en la Estación Internacional se encuentra un brazo robótico, el cual ayudará a la conexión de esta nave, y que pues la nave se encuentra ya configurada para que llegue a la estación espacial. Como podemos notar, los astronautas pues no hacen mucho en la nave, únicamente están monitoreando de que todo se encuentre en perfectas condiciones, ya que si sucediera algún problema, pues ellos tendrían que tomar el mando en ese mismo momento para que no haya ningún problema y puedan llegar a la estación espacial sin ningún problema.
I mean, this is a day, this is a historical day. This is us kicking off that new era of space flight that we've all been talking about and longing for since the Space Shuttle program came to an end in 2011.
Yes.
And the weather cooperated.
Yes, second time's a charm.
Right.
All right, so day for the history books. As you can see, we have lost some live signal there, but the mission still continues, and we're going to send it over to KSC to continue broadcasting live with you.
Lost of signal, Newfoundland.
Yeah, Jesse and Dan, we are just in awe over here. When I woke up this morning and looked at the weather forecast.
Bueno, como podemos ver, se ha perdido la conexión hacia la nave, hacia la cápsula Dragón, y bueno, pues En estos momentos no tenemos conexión hacia la cápsula Dragón, pero esperemos que todo vaya bien, ya que ellos estarían llegando a la Estación Espacial Internacional el día de mañana a una temprana hora de la madrugada, y que pues estarán en la estación espacial por al menos un mes, de 1 a 4 meses, y después estarían regresando a la Tierra después de ese tiempo. Después de un largo tiempo de no tener ningún lanzamiento desde suelo americano, se vuelve a retomar esta competencia espacial, especialmente con Rusia, ya que todos los vuelos anteriores se han elaborado en lo que son tierras extranjeras. Además, podemos ver que SpaceX pues ya tiene la certificación aprobada de NASA. Esto con el fin de que SpaceX pueda llevar más personas al espacio y que en el futuro pues se pueda hacer viajes comerciales hacia el espacio.
Vice President Mike Pence and NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, who joins me now, and you were with the President and the Vice President. America's back, launching human astronauts again. Tell me how you feel about that, and tell me about the President watching the launch and what happened there.
So this has been a long time coming. It's been 9 years since we've launched American astronauts on American rockets from American soil, and now it's done. We have done it. It's been way too long. I want to give a lot of credit to Charlie Bolden. He was my predecessor as the NASA administrator. He fought hard for this program at a time when it didn't get any support in Congress. We now have an administration that is fully supportive of our spaceflight initiatives, not just on the exploration, discovery, going to the moon, onto Mars, but also from a Space Force perspective. Our budgets are going up, things are strong, and today was just just an amazing day. You know, one of the things the President did right out of the gate when he became President is he created what's called the National Space Council, and he put the Vice President as chairman of the National Space Council. And on that National Space Council, you've got the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Transportation, the Secretary of Education, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, all of these different amazing individuals that deal with space day in and day out. A lot of people don't realize how many parts of the federal government deal with space. And the Vice President invited those members of the National Space Council here as well. So we just had, and then we had members of Congress, bipartisan members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, who have been involved in supporting this program you know, for a long time now. So I'll just tell you, I'm breathing a sigh of relief. But I will also tell you, I am not going to celebrate until Bob and Doug are home safely. Tomorrow, they're going to dock to the International Space Station. Tonight, I'm heading to Houston to be at the Johnson Space Center when that happens. So it's a bit of a relief. The nose cone is now open. It's now deployed, which means that you know, now we're going to go into some burns. We're going to have some phasing burns. We're going to have some you know, boosting burns, and we're going to get as much as we can in alignment with the International Space Station as early as possible here. But also, I know it's hard, but you know, the big thing that we need to do now is we got to get Bob and Doug, who have now gone through this exercise twice. They need to get some rest. But I can guarantee you there will be no rest for a good amount of time while they're up there in orbit.
And they are certainly on their way, and a lot of people joining us for this entire celebration and watching it. We just heard 10 million people watching live as this launch happened, and President Donald Trump becoming the third sitting president to watch a launch live from the Kennedy Space Center. The first.
To be clear, I think he's the only sitting president to watch American astronauts launch on a brand new rocket that has never launched before, and that's a big risk. You know, he also said we're going to go to the moon by 2024. That means he's putting himself at risk to say, look, I'm going to be accountable, potentially, I'm going to be accountable to the initiatives that I put forward. And I think we have not had that kind of leadership for space in a very, very long time, and we're so grateful for it.
What was it like watching the launch with the president? How did he react?
Oh, I'll tell you, it's obviously something that is near and dear to him. He said it a year and a half ago. He put it in the State of the Union speech. He said, we're going to launch American astronauts on American rockets from American soil. And of course, I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, we better get after this. Of course, we've worked overtime to make it happen. We might be a little behind schedule, but we got it done, and we got it done safely. We're knocking on wood, but so far so good. It's looking good.
You personally, Jim, as that rocket was lifting off and you felt that rumble?
Yeah.
What'd you feel? What'd you experience?
Well, I was praying. I'm not going to lie to you. I was praying. I was praying for Bob and Doug. I was praying for their families. I was praying for their safe return, even though they're just going. But man, I'll tell you, it was, I've heard that rumble before, but it's a whole different feeling when you've got your own team on that rocket. And they are our team. They are America's team. This is Launch America. This is everything that America has to offer in its purest form. And times are tough right now. There is no doubt. We've got the coronavirus pandemic. We have other challenges as a country. But I hope this moment in time.
Por aquí tenemos una pregunta que cuánto tiempo durará. Bueno, el vuelo se espera que tenga 19 horas. Se espera que 19 horas esté llegando a la Estación Espacial Internacional. Y después ellos se van a encontrar ahí por alrededor de un mes o 4 meses, dependiendo de la situación, y después estarían regresando a la Tierra. El despegue, la salida del cohete del Falcon 9, bueno, pues como vimos es solo unos cuantos minutos hasta que llega a la órbita baja. Después de la órbita baja, pues estaría efectuando su camino hacia la Estación Espacial Internacional y estarían conectándose a la Estación Internacional el día de mañana por la madrugada. En la Estación Espacial Internacional se encuentra un brazo robótico el cual va a estar ayudando a acoplar la cápsula Dragón con lo que es la Estación Espacial Internacional.
That's happening here at 6:30 this evening Eastern Time on NASA TV. We'll have NASA and SpaceX leaders here to take questions live on this unprecedented achievement in human spaceflight. And in addition to NASA TV, you can follow along always on Twitter at @NASA and nasa.gov for mission updates as it progresses. Here now are highlights from the mission so far. May 30th, 2020. Remember this day. You'll have this memory forever. The day America returned astronauts to orbit from U.S. soil.
Wow, we're making history again.
Let's go.
Como reseña de nuestros astronautas, tenemos a Robert Behnken, mejor conocido como Bob Behnken. Él ha sido un astronauta seleccionado por la NASA en el 2000 y también ha participado en 2 vuelos espaciales anteriormente. Él estuvo participando en el desarrollo de la aeronave en conjunto con SpaceX para hacer los vuelos desde suelo americano. Él es nativo de Missouri. Él ha volado el STS-123 en marzo del 2008, el STS-130 en febrero del 2010 y tiene aproximadamente 708 horas en el espacio y ha tenido 37 horas como caminatas espaciales. Y él es el que se encuentra a cargo de la misión hacia la Estación Espacial Internacional. Tiene 2 licenciaturas, una en física y la otra en mecánica, ingeniería mecánica. Tenemos también que tiene lo que es un máster y un doctorado en como mecánico, como ingeniería mecánica. Bueno, pues esto sería todo por el momento. Esperamos que no haya ningún problema, que nuestros astronautas tengan la oportunidad o que se encuentren fuera de riesgo para llegar a lo que es la Estación Espacial Internacional. Como vuelvo a repetir, estarían llegando, el vuelo tomaría 19 horas para llegar a la Estación Espacial Internacional y estarían conectándose con la estación el día de mañana a muy temprana hora. Muchas gracias a todos los que se unieron en esta transmisión. Voy a preparar una transmisión para lo que es el acoplamiento de la nave hacia la estación espacial en un futuro, ya que esto tardaría 19 horas y bueno, pues 19 horas creo que sí es algo de tiempo. Muchas gracias a todos los que se han conectado. No se les olvide darle like, suscribirse a este canal, ya que estaría en un futuro agregando más videos acerca de tecnología y acerca de cómo se efectuó todo este lanzamiento de Falcon